Alrighty, guys, we got back at it again with Pearl. Was hoping we wouldn't be doing this for quite some time, but apparently after she made her apology, she did an interview, which was 2 weeks ago. I even looked because I'm like surprised. Unless they filmed this episode 3 weeks ago, these people, Triggernometry, it's like two comedians apparently, interviewed her about Nick Fuentes, and this was 4 days ago, which is way after she apologized. But everything she's saying in here, from what I've seen, because I've seen clips on the internet of it, like contradicts her entire apology. Now, again, maybe they filmed this way earlier, but I couldn't find anything. It seems like she said this after her apology, which is bizarre to me. So yeah, I mean, that's wild. She walks everything back. So the only thing I'm going to say is, from everything that it looks like, she completely walks everything back. Maybe somehow this happened before they released the podcast after her apology, but they did it before. I don't even know. But it seems like this is just like she just pretty much said, "You screw it," and she's just walking it back. So let's get this started. This was filmed after they even mentioned. Was it? Wait, what does that mean? Oh, so she just like actively walks it back. Okay, let's get this going.
Women will play the victims when they started it. Like, you can't hit a guy and not expect to get hit back.
I guess. We're starting off very intensely.
That's interesting.
I think we should teach the women
My response.
not to hit someone stronger than them.
Okay.
And they'll say, like, men are responsible for all the whores, you know? But I really think it's on the whores for being whores. I recently decided that women shouldn't vote.
You decided women shouldn't vote?
Yeah, that's a new opinion.
Why is that?
Okay.
I'll take one
We got our hot take machine here. Just Pearly Things.
for the team, yeah.
Okay.
You should have the
Please
same
do.
opinions. You should be voting for the same person as your husband.
Why?
It's like, I don't know, you want to be in a house where you're arguing about politics?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want someone who thinks different.
No, nobody, like, listen, this is the thing, okay? I don't want, like, somebody who's going to agree with me on everything. But I do want to be with somebody who's mature enough to disagree without, like, having a problem. It's one thing to have, like, a discussion in the household about politics, which there's no worries about, by the way. Like, okay, it can be very stimulating for people to be like, oh, what's your opinion on this? Versus some people that are, like, screaming at each other because they're both too mature to have differences in opinion. That's what I don't want. But, like, yeah, my wife and I disagree on, like, we generally agree on most things, but, like, we disagree on some things somewhat frequently. We have conversations about it. It's stimulating. Like, it's healthy for you to stimulate your mind like that. Like, just understand this. So.
Differently to me.
You had a guy called Nick Fuentes. that
Oh,
you
yeah,
interviewed.
yeah, Nick.
Yeah.
I did not find Nick to be racist. My staff
Based.
actually did not find him to be racist.
Wow,
You
that's
don't-
really weird because they said that they did.
Did say, I am a bit racist, even in that. And in fact, in your apology, you said that he said racist things.
Oh my God, this is confirmed after the apology. Oh my, you know, I was really trying to give my girl a little bit of the benefit of the doubt of, like, maybe there's some astral universe where this all happened beforehand. Oh no, there's no way. This is so bad. She's such a goofy goober.
What I'm a bit confused about is you did a whole apology, but
Okay,
it sounds
can
like
you
you're
stop
not.
asking me about this?
Hey guys, I'm gonna go onto a show talking about my controversies. Can you please stop talking about my controversies? Oh my God.
Hello and welcome to Trigonometry. I'm Francis Foster.
Yo, this music better be DMCA free, okay? Or I'm gonna cry. Okay, this is crazy.
I'm Konstantin Kissin.
And this is a show for you if you want honest conversations with fascinating people.
As you know, what we do on
Fascinating.
Trigonometry is talk to people with a variety of different views. Our guests are often outspoken or controversial.
But no matter who we're talking to, we always approach our interviews in good faith. That means we let our guests speak, don't misrepresent them, and challenge them respectfully
Okay.
if we disagree.
A couple of days ago, we interviewed a YouTuber called JustPearlyThings.
That's fair. I can respect that. Let them speak, but also challenge them, because that was the issue with Pearl talking to Fuentes. It wasn't that she had him on. It was that she didn't challenge him on anything, which means either you're dumb or you agree. But I'm starting to think that she actually agrees. I think that we're at a point now where I think I've given Pearl plenty of the benefit of the doubt of just being, like, ignorant, and she's still a really dumb person. But I think that we kind of just crossed into that she just she's just kind of like, I guess, kind of racist, like actively. I mean, we're all a little racist, am I right? But there's something, there's a lottle there. It seems more like a lottle, you know what I'm saying? So
Now, in between booking her to come on the show several weeks ago and actually doing the interview on Thursday, she hosted a well-known white supremacist, openly racist Holocaust denier called Nick Fuentes on her show.
Understandably, that generated a lot of pushback, and she deleted the interview and issued a lengthy apology. Given that, we were happy to go ahead with the interview, and we obviously had to bring up the situation.
It's never our intention to make our guests look bad, but we also have a duty to ask these questions and to challenge people when what they're saying doesn't make sense to us.
When we asked about the apology, let's just say things got very awkward very quickly.
What you're about to watch is the full unedited interview.
it's very interesting, like that these people are doing, like they're starting off their interview with like their inner thoughts about it. I wonder if maybe that's something I should consider doing. Maybe, I don't know.
We haven't cut or added anything so that, as always, you, the viewer, can make up your own mind. Enjoy. Our brilliant guest today is a fellow YouTuber who started her show a year ago and is now on over 1 million subscribers. Pearl Davis, aka JustPearlyThings. Welcome to Trigonometry.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's awesome. Thanks so much for coming. It's great to have you on. As I just bigged you up, you've absolutely smashed it. Before we get into all of that, tell everybody, who are you? How are you where you are? What's been the journey through life that leads you to be sitting here talking to us?
So my name's Pearl. I'm a YouTuber. I'm from Chicago. I live in London. I do a YouTube show here.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, from Chicago. Now all the racism makes sense. Okay.
How did you decide to start it? How did you have the idea? You could tell everybody what the show is, because a lot of people wouldn't have seen it.
Oh, okay.
All
I'm
that
sorry.
stuff.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
So we talk about a lot of men's issues. So I feel like
No, you don't. You talk about, you shit on women and you use men's issues as an excuse. Like, let's be really what it is. You emotionally manipulate vulnerable men who usually don't have fathers or any actual male role model in their life, and you weaponize those feelings of frustration and like being upset, and you redirect it at women and blame women for all the problems that men face in the world. Okay, which is the same as women blaming all men for all the problems in the world. The world's complicated, and if your advocacy centralizes around breaking down another group instead of building up your own, you're not an advocacy group. You're a hate farmer. You're an emotional provocateur. You are a bad person that doesn't actually care. That's what it all boils down to.
most media today is catered towards women, pandering towards women. We don't do that on my channel.
You don't pander to women.
No, we're not about that. And
I mean, there's things that pander to women, but do you guys ever think that maybe there's a difference between pandering to a group versus just maintaining mutual respect between all the groups? You know what I mean? On my show, we actively shit on women, because if you don't do that, you're pandering. Like, there are things that pander to women. Sure, there's things that pander to any group. But like, I think most people are just trying to be respectful, and it's not that deep, you know? But okay.
You pander to men.
not pander. Look, I say things that are true.
Okay.
I say things
You don't.
that are
You're
like
constantly embarrassed and corrected. Constantly. You're embarrassing. When you talk to Destiny, that was hilarious how like much you got decimated on everything that you got wrong. And everybody gets some stuff wrong, but like but it's impressive how like there's not like, because listen, we all get stuff wrong. I got stuff wrong. You know what I mean? Like the other day, there was that video with Ethan Klein and the BBTV thing, and I read part of it, and I was incorrect in my interpretation, but I didn't read the rest of the contract. Like, I was right based on what I read, but I didn't read the rest of it. I didn't do my due diligence because I got so triggered by people in the chat that weren't being disrespectful, because I don't know what was wrong with me that day. I mean, frankly, I got to continuously work on that. That I got too stun-locked into arguing with people. That I was wrong. And, you know, that's embarrassing. I pinned a comment explaining how I was wrong, and God bless you. Leave it at that. That's life, man. Everybody gets stuff wrong. But like Pearl is there's a difference between being wrong about some stuff versus like just her whole worldview is incorrect, and she doesn't even understand her worldview. Like, that's the biggest part. She doesn't even, I don't think that she agrees or believes anything that she says. She doesn't even understand her own entire worldview. Like, it's bizarre, and she's constantly getting dumpstered. At the very least, even if you think that she's correct, she shouldn't be representing whatever issue she's talking about, because she doesn't seem to be able to do it very well. I did get dumpstered by the chat. Well, you know, hey, listen, sometimes you got to take those humbling experiences, and you got to be humble. That's life. You know, so you got to reflect, and you just always do better, guys. What are you going to do, right? You got to just do... You just gotta be better. You know, it is what it is. You know, it's life. So yeah, she does not understand studies.
Basic to me, right?
Okay.
But
Like what?
you know, you shouldn't get super fat after you get married just because you got a ring.
Sure. First of all, that's just disrespectful the way that you're saying it. Second of all, you exclusively have that advice towards women. It's one thing, like, here's how you should say it as a respectful person. To anybody, try not to get too comfortable in a relationship because that could stress the relationship. Don't stop trying because that your partner interprets that as you not loving them in some capacity anymore. And let's be real, like, if you marry somebody at a certain weight, if you gain weight, like, that's unattractive to them. I like heavier women, but if my, like, you know, if my wife gained a lot of weight or I gained a lot of weight, I wouldn't leave her, of course, because I love my wife and I respect her, and she loves me, and she wouldn't leave me either. But we would encourage each other to get healthier, which we already are based on our current weight, right? That's the way you do it. But you understand that there's relationship struggles, and if somebody's eating that much, it's probably, and especially if it's changed, there might be something wrong going on. Maybe they got comfortable. A little bit of comfort weight isn't that big of a deal. But like, hey guys, I managed to I single out women and be respectful about what I was saying. Like, how hard was that? Again, it's trying to intentionally be provocative for attention. Because you know who does that? Babies. Little babies do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you ever see like a baby like hurt themselves, like maybe they fall or something, and you go, oh my god, oh, and they start crying. But then, like, if you never did that, they wouldn't really have a reaction. That's Pearl. She's the baby that people are like, you know what I'm talking about, right? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about here.
I mean, I feel like that's basic. Women in the 1950s knew that. But today,
Wow.
I'm a bully. I'm the meanest person ever.
No,
blah, blah. So yeah, that's what I do. Is we talk about relationships on my show. And so we bring in men and women to talk about.
Guys, we talk about relationships on our show. None of us are in one. Except that one, like, older woman. Everybody else, none of us have ever been in a healthy long-term relationship. We talk about relationships on our show. You think if I talked about, like, fucking, I don't know, healthy eating? No. I do sometimes because I'm trying to eat healthier. But you understand my point. Like, well, you haven't been in a relationship. Why do you think you're an expert on them? Like, you're not even in a relationship with a guy. Apparently, your strategy of being an obnoxious fuck is not working. I don't understand it. It's what we like to call in the game silly goosery.
Different, like, relationship topics, and then we go back and forth.
Yeah.
And then I also work a lot with the court system here. I'm doing a documentary on men getting custody of their kids.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be really dumb. So here's the reality, right? Men are disfavored in the court system. Absolutely. Specifically, good men are disfavored. But realistically speaking, like, overall, the system is decent. Most of the time, women want their kids over men. And the inequalities that you see in the system is because the men will want equal custody and they'll fight for it. There's also a factor of people using their kids, both men and women, as like bargaining chips, which is really pathetic because that's really bad for the kid, right? Like, our interview doing for the court system is silly. Most women want to be around their kids. If you're a guy, like, take a day of custody and then fight for more. You don't have to, I want equal custody. Okay, well, who's been raising the kid for the past, like, 6 months? Oh, the mom alone. Okay, well, why do you think that this is happening? You know, there are inequalities for sure, and good men, those are the ones that get dumpstered and, like, end up getting, like, less custody than they should get. But, like, most of the men don't want to be in their kids' lives. It's just a reality. It's a harsh reality, and, like, that's what we need to be criticizing more than anything else. Instead of making an excuse for these worthless men who don't want to be in their kids' lives, how about you hold them accountable so we have fewer worthless men? We live in a society that, like, will, like, shits on a fucking trans person for existing. Oh, a trans man's not a real man, but a deadbeat dad is somehow a real man. Okay, yeah, great. That makes perfect sense. Childish bullshit. That's the problem. So, like, another victim complex, blaming women for, like, a problem that men experience of, like, not wanting to be there for their kids to the same proportionality. Hold them more accountable. Be like, yo, that's bad, but you don't do that. You centralize your time on, like, women who are want to be there for their kids. Like, wow, fucking weird as fuck.
But one of the things you did with your show, and I don't know if you were one of the first ones, but it's definitely a format that's really skyrocketed. I can't open my Twitter now without, 8 people sitting around the table having some discussion.
Yeah, dumb
Often
fucking
they don't know what they're talking about. But it's a format of bringing kind of random people together, partly random.
Very random.
Very random.
Very random, yeah.
And you also have famous people, and we'll talk about that as
Yeah.
well. But did you come up with that? Was that something that
not.
you saw other people doing? Like,
No, I would say Fresh and Fit in Miami were probably the first ones to do that. So I went on their show. And what I liked about London is it was one of the most like diverse places I've ever lived.
Yeah.
So I just thought it'd be cool to bring everyone in a room and talk about something that we all have in common, which is relationships.
Fucking dumb as shit. Yeah,
That's
not
very
having
interesting.
any,
And so,
not being in one.
Why do you pick the subjects that you do? Why are you drawn to the subjects that you
Because she
discuss?
makes money when you
Because
pick me.
they are controversial, they can get you into hot water, etc.
get you into
I follow
Hogwarts.
what interests me, and I just thought those subjects were interesting. It wasn't. A lot of people think it's like a lot more drawn out. Every week, I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting topic, and we go for it.
Oh,
I would say it's a mix of relationships. Sometimes we add in some conservative stuff, but it's like mostly about relationships.
Yeah, you mean like far right wing like racism, that type of conservative stuff, or just like anti-trans rhetoric. Trans men aren't real men, guys, but a deadbeat dad—that's a real man. No, incredible stuff, guys.
And why does that interest you, Paul? In particular, do you feel that relationships are in crisis now, or we don't value relationships, or we look at relationships
I
in the
just
wrong
think
way?
men aren't allowed to have standards in society, and that's just like the one thing
Yes, they are. Shut up. Stop with this bullshit. Like, you're so full of shit. Oh, I feel like because there's some like this is the problem when like you're terminally online. You think that TikTok reflects everything. Like just because there's annoying, toxic people that are like, if you won't date a fat woman, you're fat phobic, doesn't mean that that's reflective of society, and it's really not. You're allowed to have standards. Nobody's criticizing or contesting that. Everyone's allowed to have standards. Everybody does have standards. Like grow up. Stop engaging with a bunch of like rich men that just want like women there to fuck like young supple women that are like, don't stand up for themselves. Like engage with regular people.
I noticed. Like whenever men say that they want something in a relationship, like women always shame them for it. And I just thought it was so interesting how we never like talk about the men's point of view. So when I first started, I started like introducing my friends to like certain types of content. So I would be like, well, have you ever thought about this way, or have you ever thought about that way? And I don't know, that's kind of how it started.
Right. So
yeah, when she says that, she means like fat women don't deserve love. That's how she introduces her friends to content. They go like, wow, you're kind of a loser, Pearl. And then you go off onto tangents about how some like your friend got fatter and that's why they can't have kids or something, like some weird thing. And then like she called you out and was like, wow, you're an idiot, Pearl. And then they stop being your friend. And you're like, I don't know why people won't be my friend anymore, just because like I'm an obnoxious bitch. I'll take that one too.
men are shamed for having standards. What do you mean by that? Let's just unpick that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we have? We have fat shaming. If a guy says, I want a girl in shape, oh, he's fat shaming. Oh, if a guy says, I
never happens. Like let's just stop. This doesn't happen. I haven't seen a single instance where a guy was just like, hey, I like a fit girl, and people had a meltdown. That's not happening. It's just not happening. I don't know what to tell you. Now there are guys who are like, I think fat women are disgusting. Of course, you're being disrespectful. Of course, people are going to like be like, oh, that's stupid. But this is not happening. It's just not. Okay, you're making things up, so stop crying.
don't want the town whore, you know, then he's slut shaming. You know, if he says, I don't want to, like, it's like anytime a guy demands something out of a relationship or he's labeled as controlling. And I just got, oh my gosh, I got so tired in the past year.
Yeah, none of this is happening. There's like, I wouldn't want to go to OnlyFans either. Nobody's ever cried, shit, come, or shamed me. Nobody cares. But there's a difference between being like, yeah, I wouldn't really want to date like somebody who's overweight, or I wouldn't want to date somebody who, because, you know, or I wouldn't want to date somebody who does OnlyFans, versus being like, oh, I don't want to date some disgusting whore. Oh, I don't want to date some fat piece of shit. Like, those are different things. Like, it's respect. We lost the ability to be respectful in our disagreements. I just say the truth. No, you hate farm with disrespect. You're a baby. You're a child. Like, you could just be like, yeah, I prefer fit women, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if a girl was like, yeah, I just don't really like overweight guys, okay, like, that's fine, as long as you're respectful. You know, and it goes both ways. Like, there are women like, I hate short guys. Like, that's just, like, the way that you say it is disrespectful. You know, you're allowed to have height preferences. I would try to look through the height preference, you know. Short kings. But, like, as long as you're respectful about your preference, nobody really cares that much. So.
Because I just feel like we would talk about like basic things, and the men would say basic things that they wanted, and like they would just continue to be shamed for it.
Like,
and it's just like one of those things. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
So what are the basic things? And look, a lot of people have said you use, let's put it, fruity language, as they would say in the 1950s in England, like the town whore.
Oh yeah.
You should have said
town bicycle.
the city hall.
The city hall.
Yeah.
But so what do you mean by that?
I think we know what you mean by that.
No, whore?
Yeah. No. But let's talk. What does that mean? Because
sleeping. Okay, I met one girl.
Okay. I met one girl, guys, and this defined my entire thought for all women. This tank is a fucking goober. Sorry.
She told me this was off camera. She didn't tell me this on camera. Girl, because we had a pro-life show. Girls had 7 abortions. Wow. 7.
Wow. Yeah, that's bad. I wouldn't want to date her either. It's not even a body count thing. She's incredibly irresponsible. You don't have to call her a whore. You could be like, yeah, I think that's really irresponsible, and I think that I wouldn't want a girl who's had 7 abortions. That's really that's just not good. That's probably unhealthy for your body. It might make it difficult for you to have kids, but also like you're irresponsible. Like if you can't wrap it up, and I get having 1 abortion, maybe even 2, but if you've had 7, yeah, gross. I wouldn't call her a whore. I just wouldn't talk to her. Like, okay, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to grow up and get your shit together. That's not reflective of most women. Most women don't have 7 abortions. So that's what we call an outlier. So
she's like 28.
Okay.
It's like madness. Like you can't tell me that's not madness.
Right.
And so we're just in this world where it's like girls.
Hey guys. So what do you mean by girls are whores? Oh, well, I have this example that I didn't actually talk about on my show publicly. That's your one example. You're saying you find this every single day, and your only example is something that you never filmed. But you do a show. So if this is happening all the time, wouldn't you be talking to these women? So why don't you have an example right here? Does that make sense?
Doing this crazy stuff. And if anyone has anything to say about it, we're the bad guys. It's just like, don't put me in that group. Like,
well, that makes a lot of sense, because I think a lot of people, including a lot of women, would be like, you've had 7 abortions. I mean, even if you're pro-choice,
yeah, it's a lot.
You'd sort of not be on board with that. Most people.
Most people.
You'd be surprised.
I probably wouldn't.
You think a lot of people are on board with that?
Nope.
Maybe not on board, but like legally.
Oh, yeah.
What? Legally? Shut the fuck up. Who's talking about legal? Yes, you should legally be able to have 7 abortions. I think you're an irresponsible dickhead if you do. And most people agree with me. Most people are like, yeah, I believe like abortion should be accessible, but it's a necessary evil. I don't really like it. I wouldn't want to get one. I wouldn't want somebody in my, I wouldn't want my wife to get one, but I understand the availability of it for some people based on their circumstance, and that should be their decision. Okay, that's most people. Even like conservatives would like agree with that. Like, yeah, I get that. Let's maintain it in like the first, maybe second trimester. Okay, that's fair. And let's also provide resources so that we can reduce the necessity of abortions, because I also believe with that. I agree with that too. Let's provide more contraceptive. Let's do better sexual health education. Let's do these good things here. That's most people. Pearl clearly doesn't really have a concept of what most people think.
So I hear it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do you think that these particular women don't take responsibility for their actions? Do you think it's society?
Why would it's like we live in a world where women are bailed out of every single bad decision we make. If we want to sleep around, there's birth control. If birth control,
you realize that women on birth control allow men to also do the same, right? Like men and women typically, and therefore regard gay people, have sex with each other. So when a woman's on birth control, I can't tell you how many times a girl told me she's on birth control, so I come in her. I mean, and that's irresponsible. Always wear a condom because STDs. But I was an irresponsible young asshole. Like I was also able to get out of that, if you want to consider that getting out of Dodge or whatever the fuck, getting out of responsibility. It's the same thing. Like what? You realize that men and women sleep with each other, right? You're just a silly goose.
Doesn't work, there's abortion.
Yeah, men benefit from abortion too. If
the girl does get pregnant and wants to keep it, she can put the dude on child support and not let him see the kids.
Sure. So this is this is like one of the only reasonable conversations that Pearl ever brings up. Okay, people will, and my wife and I disagree on this. It's actually funny. People will say, well, if a woman can get out of pregnancy by getting an abortion, why can't a man get like a financial abortion? Now, my wife says, like, sure, as long as we have like more robust systems to help the kid, because the kid, if you're going to have the kid needs to be supported, right? They'll have a worse outcome if they don't get extra money. My take is this: I would be fine with that if we decided to allow men to like cut off financially. I don't really care either way, as long as a kid is getting the support that they need. But here's the thing that drives me crazy. Because I don't think men should be able to get out of an abortion, generally speaking. You might be like, or he should be able to do a financial one. You'd be like, well, that's a double standard. No, you're the one that's engaging in a double standard. I'm going to explain to you how, okay? When it comes to sports, who makes the most money? Men. Why do they make the most money? Because they're better at sports. They have a biological advantage. They have a biological predisposition to be better at all sports. And so we don't pay men and women the same because men are better at a sport. They have a biological predisposition. Now let's turn this to abortion. Women have a biological predisposition to have babies, so they get the final say. In general, equality doesn't mean everybody's perfectly equal. It means equality on access of opportunity. But then there's going to be different limitations or different benefits that different people are going to have where they're going to excel in different ways. Men generally will excel at sports. Women generally excel at having babies, right? So women get to be the ones that have the deciding factor on if they want to get an abortion or not, and men don't. Oh, well, it's unequal. Like, this is how like things work. Okay, men don't get paid more money to do sports because they're men. They get paid more money because men have a biological advantage. Here you go. Women have, and the first time women got a biological advantage by being the ones that have to carry babies, and all of a sudden, oh, this is unequal. Oh, fuck, I can't cope. It's unequal. No, it's not. It's not unequal. And maybe you agree with my wife more. That's fine, but it's not unequal. It's just a biological advantage that a woman has. Like, tough shit. I don't know what to tell you. That's just it. That's all it is. So
like what, a guy gets 6 days a month, maybe if he's lucky. On top of that, if
you could fight for more,
that doesn't go well, you know, they can give it up for adoption.
What up, girl?
Like, women are always bailed out of every bad decision we make.
Men also, like, not for nothing. Okay, because it's fucking insane how she just has no brain. If you're a father that pays child support and doesn't see your kid, you like, okay, like, you're getting out of a responsibility as well. You're not there for the kid. You're just paying into it. You're not helping that child that you help bring into the world. Like, there's an ebb and flow to this. Okay? And if you're a dad that wants to see their kid, then why wouldn't you want to pay child support? If you, oh, well, he only gets to see his kid, like, what, 6 days? Yeah, that sucks. But as a man, you'll be there for your kid. The problem is, again, that these people, they don't want to be there for their kids, and then they complain about not being able to be there for their kids. It's fucking, like, it's fucking crazy.
I heard here they gave you free housing if you're a single mother.
Okay.
What incentive do we have to make good decisions if we get free shit from the government?
My only question is, do fathers also get free housing if they're single fathers? And as long as they get the same systems and supports, I don't care. I didn't even do that.
Making bad decisions.
It's a good point, but then surely isn't the system at fault rather than the individual, Pearl?
Why?
Both. I mean, I think the system's at fault for like allowing them to do that, but I mean, I think your life is your own fault.
Yeah.
So if you can't.
The system is trying to help children and single mothers, and it should be. The only issue I'd have is if they don't provide the same resources to single fathers based on their level of necessity. Because like my mom didn't get any welfare benefits because my mom she made decent money, but that's okay because you're supposed to help people who need the help. So as long as like a father that makes the same amount of money as a single mother, like a single father that makes the same amount of money as a single mother, gets access to the same benefits. I don't care. Cool. Good. They should. Whoever's taking care of the kid should get access.
Tell me, a girl had 7 abortions. That's not her fault.
No.
Like, come on.
I agree. That's why
Way to take it to the extreme, you fucking moron.
Yeah.
Francis always likes to blame the system because he's an old school lefty.
Yeah.
Everything's about the system.
No, I mean.
Yeah, a lot of things are about the system, but like you have to have a nice balance between like individual and systemic. You know what I mean?
I would say it's okay. There's good people and bad people, but if you have a system that allows bad people to get away with the bad things that they do, then of course.
What's the bad thing? Getting pregnant and then the guy leaving? Like, how is that the woman being bad? I'm a little confused. Like, this is the problem. It seems like any woman who needs some kind of help is a bad woman. And then the guy's always a good... So the woman who needs financial help from the government is a bad woman, but the guy who didn't want to be there for their kid is not a bad man. Call them out equally. Like, I don't understand. You know, because, like, it's not like all fucking single mothers are good people. Like, not for nothing. Like, there are a lot of shitty, like, single parents in general. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know what want me to tell you. But, like, she only focuses on what she considers bad women.
The system's at fault, too. However, like, your own life is your own fault. So I kind of see both sides when it comes to that.
Well, now your life is our fault. Fuck Christ.
And are these your politics that inform your worldview? Do you have a political outlook on life?
I would say I'm, like, more conservative, but...
Shit. Everybody would say that.
Like, no, it's just what I see in front of me, like, to be honest.
Yep.
You know,
well, that's the problem, is that you don't look at statistics. You just look at what's in front of you. And, like, you make these decisions based on your own life experience without any knowledge from anything else. That's your problem.
That's the sense I get from you. You're not ideological. You just go, that's stupid, that doesn't work, etc. Right? That's my take on it. That's my sense of you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
What she's basically saying here, to any manosphere person watching, she's emotional. That's what she's basically saying here. Yeah, I don't really look at anything. I just kind of go based on what I think is something or I feel is this. That's emotional. You're just making emotional decisions for everything. Men do it too. The manosphere isn't full of an entire cope network of people who are overly emotional, don't look at actual like facts or logic, or misinterpret facts so that they can sound like they're intelligent. But that's what you're saying. You're saying you're emotional, that you don't take facts into account, and then you complain about people being emotional. It's funny. It's just very ironic.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were going to say something else there. No. How have you found the experience of like just bringing in? Because you just literally, do you just grab people off the street?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's hell. Recruiting is hell. Yeah, basically a year ago I started with like my teammates, but I dunked on them a little too hard. So they stopped coming on. Because this one girl was trying to say that a guy that likes younger women was a pedophile. And I was just like,
well, it's obviously not true. Guys that like younger girls are not pedophiles, right? Men in general tend to prefer women that are a little younger, and women tend to prefer men that are a little older. But I will say it is a little bit bizarre. I think it's immature is the right word to use for it. When you're 30-something years old and you're exclusively attracted to girls who are like 18 to 22, who have very little life experience, who don't really know very much about anything, and are completely submissive and will do anything that you tell them without any pushback. That's at the very least immature. And then like breaking up with them when they get too old it's immature. It's childish, you know? Now, I don't even know if Pearl's accurately representing what she's talking about because she has a tendency to lie aggressively. But yeah, like a 30-something, and like, listen, I get it. Like you might be 30-something and you might want to like fuck a young girl. I like a legal age. I get it. But then there's people who like to go to bars, find these freshly legal girls who somehow got in and get them drunk and then not to drink themselves. That's predatory. So.
Now, I wasn't talking about underage women, okay? I'd like to declare, don't clip me, don't do that. And I was just like, no, like that's just natural. That's what men naturally want younger women.
Yeah.
So yeah, then they stopped coming on, but no, we recruit through Instagram.
I'm sure it was more than that.
Mostly.
And so you get a bunch of random people who want to come on the show to discuss these things.
Yes.
And you clearly, you know, as you said, you were dunking on your own teammates too hard, so they've left, right?
Some of them came back. They did come back.
And how does that go? Because we do, I mean, certainly from our perspective, live in a society where, as you say, people are very uncomfortable with certain things that we all know are true being said out loud in the public eye. How does that go when you get a bunch of random people and you start dropping your truth bombs?
Sometimes well, sometimes not well. I've had a lot of girls come back and say they changed their opinions after coming on my show, actually. That they see the world in a
Girls even dumber than you. Holy shit, what a fucking terrible world we live in.
Completely different way, but I would say the majority hate me.
Yes.
Not that come on the show, but like, I don't know.
You think that maybe it's because you're disrespectful? It has nothing to do with what your opinion is, but how you express your opinion? Ever think about that? Oh my God, guys, we figured it out.
But that's interesting. So you've had people who've changed their opinions. Can you give a couple of examples of that?
I had one friend that stopped being friends with me last year because I had a post about something that pissed her off. And
yeah, I already linked that in the description as one of the videos. I'm pretty sure she's talking about the friend where like she was posting, where like she was posting about her weight for no reason. It's like, that's why you couldn't have babies, because you're fat. And the girl's like, I'm not even trying to have kids. And she's not even that overweight. It was just like really bizarre. So she has a tendency of misrepresenting what she's saying. This is the friend that she said was too fat. So
she literally said she stopped being my friend, wouldn't talk to me, whatever. She came back 3 months later and said, you were right.
Wow.
And I was a crazy feminist.
I doubt it.
And I realized I was wrong.
And what was the post?
Modern women want to be victims.
Interesting. So let's say,
that's like half of her video titles is modern women want to be victims.
Let's explore that. Why do you think that, Pearl?
Because they play the victim in everything.
Wow.
Okay. But let's give some examples. Like, what do you mean by that? Is it?
It's like
we have a problem fundamentally in our society of people playing the victim, right? Like we have an issue with that. There's a lot of young people in general, mostly on TikTok, where they play the victim on everything. Of course, that's a problem, but that's not women. That is people. There's a problem. They focus too much on systemic issues and not enough on individuality. They're like, there's a problem with the system. True. But I can't change it, so that means I'm only going to be a failure because of the system. Not true. Like, you can change it, but you also have to work on yourself and work harder. You have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps enough to like succeed in the system to advocate against it. Like, we do have a victim complex issue, but it's not women. It's everybody.
Okay, so when I started doing the show, girls would come forward and they would say like, I was abused, right?
Okay.
And my first response as like a person is I believe them, right? And
Yeah, they probably are telling the truth.
And I think, you have empathy, right? But then you find out that they didn't press any charges against the guy.
Wow, you're a fucking moron. Oh my God. So first of all, there's a difference between somebody saying like, hey, I was abused in my life versus somebody coming out against a specific person, right? Obviously, if you say, hey, this person abused me, then there's like more of an investigation process. We have to go through it. On the internet, sometimes people will weaponize these claims. It happens quite frequently online. But if you have like a friend that's like, yeah, I was abused, and they don't tell, like a lot of times when people will express their abuse, they talk about it in a way that's like healing for them, where it's like, I was abused and this is how it impacted me. They're not interested necessarily in trying to go after the person. There's a lot of confusing thoughts and feelings, right? But for you to be like, oh, well, you didn't press charges. Okay. Like, if you are abused or assaulted, you should press charges if you can, but sometimes you can't for various reasons. Sometimes people don't realize what happens to them for a little while after. Sometimes people will rationalize because, oh, I like this guy. He did rape me and like, he left me a mess and this, that, but I really like him. I don't want him to hate me. I don't want him to get in trouble. He's not a bad guy. And that's another part too, because some men are overly persistent and they'll violate a woman unintentionally. And the women are like, he's not a bad guy though. There's a lot of rationalizations, but just because you don't go to the police doesn't mean that you weren't assaulted. Part of it is you don't want to get a rape kit right after you just engaged with somebody because that's even more traumatic. Part of it could be, because it's going to be he said, she said, and you think you're going to lose. There's a lot of things that could happen. It's unfortunate, but that's not a defining factor as to whether it did or didn't happen, idiot.
So you're coming on a platform and you're saying, I was afraid to press charges, but you're not afraid to talk on my show.
Yeah, because months or years have passed, so they've rationalized it and it's changed. They're talking about it in an abstract way where it's like, this abuse happened to me. When you press charges, you're saying this person abused me. And then it becomes an entire like litigation process. Part of you could be even afraid of like retaliation. Like, this is a bad point. This is just a stupid point.
And this has happened multiple times. So
yes, that's happened to a lot of women. And I'm sure young men too, and they won't express themselves on it, which is unfortunate. Okay.
People know who her ex is that watch the show. So she's publicly defaming this man's character with no proof or evidence.
Is she specifically saying the person's name, Pearl? Because it doesn't sound like that she is. Like, that could be a problem, right? Like, if your perspective is like, hey, a woman came on my show and they expressed the trauma they had, I listened, that's fine. But then they started bringing up the name of the person, this, that, and I had to say, listen, you might have a trauma there, but like, we can't say that because it's unverifiable. I still agree with like, obviously innocent until proven guilty. And so like, if somebody was on, like, let's say I had like a show and people were on and somebody was like, oh, I had this abuse. I was like, okay, let's go talk about it. And then they're like, well, it was my John Doe did it to me in 1994. Okay, well, I think that we need to shut down this conversation because if you can't, like, this person's not here to defend themselves and it needs to go through a legal process. And that's unfortunate for you that it does, because you might be expressing like a genuine trauma, but at the end of the day, to be responsible, we have to engage in like the right talk, right? That's a fair take. That's not an invalidating take. That's just like, I want to make sure that we're doing these things correctly socially. Okay? That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what she's saying. She's just like, oh yeah, they're lying because they didn't fight hard enough. They didn't fight back hard enough. Basically, they didn't go to the police. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. Okay, you're just making excuses at this point.
And so, I just think a lot of times, like, or they wouldn't talk about how. I would ask the question, he hit you. Okay, did you hit him first?
Okay.
And more often than not, they would hit first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they didn't talk about that. They would talk. So that's what I meant. As I was talking about how like women.
Sure, if a woman hits a guy first, like that could be a problem. Like, right, like that could be an issue. Because women will hit and like they won't do as much damage because women are generally not as strong as men, right? And so some women will take that as an ability to start hitting, and that's upsetting for like a guy. Like, it's happened to me before, right? I get that. That's definitely a problem. I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't know how, but I doubt that that's most of the percentage. But okay, I just question, like, that happens for sure. I wonder how much that happens, considering her worldview is very much woman bad. But sure, that's definitely bad.
Will play the victims when they started it. Like, you can't hit a guy and not expect to get hit back.
Sure.
That's interesting.
I wouldn't
Why do you
personally.
say that? Because look, so from my own background,
just me personally, because I've been in a situation, I wouldn't hit back because like I would hurt the person. Like, it hurts on the inside. I'll tell you that. Like, all jokes aside, like it does. But like I wouldn't hit back because I know I would hurt them pretty badly. And it can put you in a situation where it's like, okay, if you do hit, like even if you don't hit back, they can just keep pushing you. And maybe they'll put you in a situation where you have to, but then all of a sudden you did a bunch of damage to them and now they're really hurt and now like you look bad in the court system. Like there's definitely problems, right? We could talk about those intelligently without shitting on all women. We could talk about dynamics in that way. You know, that's fair to talk about.
I was raised, whatever happens, whatever you do, you never lay hands on a woman. You just never do that. Whatever happens, you absolutely never do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tell men that because they cater to women. If you hit someone...
I think that they tell men that for a couple of reasons. One reason is because men hitting a woman is generally going to cause more damage, and that doesn't make it right for a woman to hit you back, or hit you in general, rather. But another reason is because men are much more likely to hit. Men express their anger or express their emotions through anger, and some men will not moderate their anger and they'll hurt women or they'll break things. Right? I've never hit a woman before. I've broken things before out of anger. I'm not proud of myself. It's something that I'm very upset with myself, and I'm always trying to work on it. You know, and that can be scary. But those aren't acceptable reactions, right? But it's not because we live in a society that caters to women. It's because we're trying to live in a better society, and we're just trying to figure things out. So we've been very adamant again about men hitting women because men used to beat the fuck out of women, and it was perfectly reasonable. Now maybe there's time to have, well, there definitely is times to have more conversations about like women hitting back or hitting in the first place, and like how you respond to that. Like we definitely need to have these conversations, you know. But we're you know, we kind of still should have this conversation of domestic abusers shouldn't have firearms, by the way. Because they end up killing women and children, and it's usually men who do it. So let's just throw that in there too, because that's probably a little bit of a bigger issue. But you know, just be a little intelligent about this.
Expect to get hit back.
Well, hold on, mate.
Like, why is she exempt from any responsibility? Like, okay, if you go up to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and you punch him in the face, is anyone going to feel bad when you get hit back?
No.
And he knocks your brains out? Like, why?
Also, though, I don't think that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would hit somebody back. If a woman walked up and hit him, he'd probably like, maybe he would grab her and be like, stop, which is probably what like maybe you would want to do. Okay. Whatever.
Why do we have that? Men don't have a cop out for that. But if a woman hits a man who's stronger than him, there's always a cop out. Then she's the victim. Oh, never hit no offense, but never hit a woman, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you hit him first. Get out of here. And now we're having cases where men are dying from women, like in Florida, where that OnlyFans model, did you guys hear about that?
No.
There was an OnlyFans model who killed her boyfriend.
Wow.
And like at first they thought it was like a mutually abusive relationship. Now CCTV footage, I don't know if it's called the same thing there, but elevator footage has come out, and like it's of her like literally beating the shit out of him.
Well, that's horrible, and I feel really bad for that guy. And I also think it's disgusting that if what you're saying is true, that you're weaponizing his tragic story to shit on all women. Because that's horrible. Like this is a good conversation to have about like women domestic abuse. We should talk about that a little more. But like, you're not doing it to have an honest conversation or that you care about this guy. You're doing it to shit on women. That's horrible. That's terrible. Jesus.
And like, what? She doesn't deserve to get hit?
I mean,
equal rights, equal lefts, baby.
I guess the counter argument to that is if a woman hits me, it's not going to do, with the vast majority of cases, that much damage.
That's what
now, we had Veronica
say, sure.
Hardy in the studio with her husband Dan, and Veronica's a UFC fighter, and Veronica would destroy me in a matter of seconds. But
that's true.
The reality is, I can hit harder than the vast majority of women and cause more damage.
Yeah, so then it's on the women to not hit the men. Why would you hit someone stronger than you?
This is what I was gonna ask you.
And this is what I mean. Like, when we look at society, there's always like a bailout. So even right.
Sure, but how often is this happening? Like in this, like this is the problem. Is it sounds like what she's doing is she's assigning this to all domestic abuse situations. Like that's the problem with the situation. Is she's assigning to everything. She's not saying like, yeah, this is a problem when it happens. She's saying that this is what happens. There's a difference between the two.
Right there, like you did it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of like little things that we don't notice in societies where it's like, never hit a woman. Why? Why does she
it's
get
not a bad thing to teach your son. However, there are...
The reason that we teach it is because historically men used to beat the shit out of their wives. So that's why this is where it comes from.
Exceptions. So this is what I was going to ask you. Yeah. Imagine you're walking down the street with your girlfriend and a woman runs over and starts beating up your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Never hit a woman?
Yeah. Okay. So to me... I would physically restrain her, and
I would just start jerking off, cat fight. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
What if she started beating you up?
What if she had a knife?
You couldn't restrain her.
What happens if she had a knife?
Or a stick, or a fucking...
Okay, right, okay, then in that case, yes.
But my whole point in this is like, see right there, that's a bailout. The woman made a bad decision, and we put it on the men to bail them out.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, if you go...
I don't understand how that's a bailout. Your girlfriend's getting beat up, and the question is, does a guy intervene? I think that they should be able to. Where does the bailout come in? I'm not understanding. Okay.
We're making it a strength argument, right? We're talking about strength. You hitting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he can't hit you back then.
Yeah.
But see, it's a gender thing. It's like women are always seen as the victim, even if they started it. And that was my point, like with that post, is like these women will play the victim on my show. And this has happened so many times where a girl will come forward, I was abused, this happened. Then I start asking questions.
And my first thing is like, did you deserve it? Like, okay.
This is the thing, like in society, they act like we can't ask any questions when a woman says abuse, says, I don't say the R word on my grape, whatever. But then you say, did you press charges? No. Well, why are you publicly defaming a man's character? Because people know who you dated. So
we've had a bunch of feminists on the show, and I can...
Oh, so they're vague about it. So they're like, oh, I had a problem with like my... Okay, they're not saying it specifically. All right.
Hear their voices in my head right now. And here's what they would say. They would say, look, if you look at the statistics, a woman is much more likely to be killed or raped or whatever by her own partner. So the biggest threat to a woman is the person, the man that she's living with, right? Women are way more likely to be...
Men are more likely to be victims of a violent crime.
Yeah.
Who cares?
By other men, yeah, sure. Like, for sure that does happen. Women are more likely to die by men in the relationships, and then men are more likely to die by other men. This is why you shouldn't go down like the dumb fuck gender, route when it comes to this, blaming women for everything.
Who's the perpetrator?
Yeah.
If men are more likely to be victims of, because then they'll always say, oh, well, I can't walk home alone at night. I got attacked by a whale because of that statement. I just think, who cares who does it?
Do you not think, though, that if we...
What do you mean, who cares who... What are you saying? What's happening here? Why isn't it relevant who does it? Your entire thing is that women don't take accountability, and then the second it's time to be like, yeah, men disproportionately harm people, it's like, well, all of a sudden, well, gender doesn't matter. How does that work? How do we rationalize that? I don't understand. How fucking bizarre, huh? Incredible.
We live in a society where we have what biologists call sexual dimorphism, like men are different to women physically, right?
Sure.
Men are bigger, stronger, etc. Because women are physically, on average, less able to protect themselves, we should have some sort of extra care. I'm not saying, never hit a woman, because I can envisage a situation where in self-defense or whatever, that may happen.
Sure.
But we have to teach men to be extra careful with the strength that they have, particularly when they're dealing with women.
I think we should teach the women not to hit someone stronger than them. Like, I don't understand. Why do we put it on the men? Put it on the women. Don't hit, like, you should teach the women.
Yeah, women don't hit guys. Fuck, that was so hard. Okay. Okay. I mean, it's exhausting listening to her logic because she's so unintelligent. It's fucking crazy. It's just fucking nuts. Like, she has no concept of reality. It's all...
Man, don't hit anyone if you don't expect to get hit back.
I agree with that.
And I don't think anyone should be able to press charges on a guy. If she hit first, she started it.
Okay.
Yeah, but what about if she hit first and then it escalated and as a result of that, she was severely beaten? That surely should be able to press charges.
That's an interesting question, actually. That's an interesting conversation to have. That's a reasonable conversation. Yeah, sure. Like, it's what the conversation is now, proportionality of response. So if a woman hits me, like, what response should I be able to do? Should I be able to just take a gun out and start shooting her? Or if I'm that physically stronger than her and she has no weapon, can I just like grab her and stop her and put her on the ground and do, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's reasonable to say that you should have at the very least a proportionate response. Because here's the thing, if you're in a traffic stop and you guys get into, like, let's say something happens where there's like road rage and one of you guys get out and you guys start throwing hands mutually, right? And you just decide to pull a gun out and shoot them, that's a disproportionate. Right? If you, like, you know what I mean? There's a little nuance to this. There's going to be scenarios where, like, if you can, like, when it comes to, like, using guns, you're supposed to, it's supposed to be, like, a last resort. So, like, if you've identified the situation, like, that's how it should work. Sure, that makes sense. Like, you shouldn't be able to violently, like, just because a girl, like, pushes you or hits you doesn't mean that you should be able to violently beat her. Like, let's say you cheat on your, like, spouse and then she, like, hits you, right? It's not right that she hit you, of course, but then you just start violently punching her back. That's a disproportionate response that you didn't need to engage in. Now, let's say she had a knife. Much different scenario, right? So, having a little bit of intelligence when it comes to these scenarios makes sense.
Because the level of violence is disproportionate to the situation.
Sure, I agree with that.
If you hit Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson first and then he beat the shit out of you,
Well, it depends. If you give him brain damage, I think it probably could press charges.
Yeah, absolutely, because it'd be grievous bodily harm. Because the whole, at least in English law, and there'll be somebody who corrects me on this, it's self-defense, Pearl. It's self-defense. If you attack me, I'm allowed to defend myself, but then it comes a point where I'm no longer defending myself, and I become the aggressor.
Yeah, yes.
You see?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, this is like the law. This is how it works in America, too. Like, this isn't, this is how these things work. Like, so the system is being pretty reasonable to itself.
I just genuinely believe that you should not hit someone and not expect to get hit back. That's
great. So you decided to just not engage with the question. They acknowledge that you should be able to have a. Now they're asking, do you think that you should be able to disproportionate? Sorry. Now they're saying, do you think you should be able to have a disproportionate response? And she just won't answer because she can't. Because she can't go back on her dumb fucking perspective. She can't be like, you know what, that's a good point. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging somebody who makes a decent point and then shifting your worldview based on that. But Pearl doesn't do that. She'll hear a good point and then she'll pretend like she'll just go la 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 and to pretend it didn't happen.
My opinion.
I mean, there's a logic.
and I just don't think you can really play the victim if you hit first. Like you hit first.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's one thing if it's like,
people.
what? Go ahead.
You shouldn't hit people, right?
Yeah, but it's just interesting how in society it's like, see, you kind of like, not just you. It's like very common. We always like take the responsibility off of the women and like put it on the men somehow.
No, but okay.
Hey, Francis, do you want to protect your privacy?
Of course I do. Now that I'm an international celebrity who's appeared on hit shows like the Joe Rogan Experience, I have to protect myself from vicious people looking to tear me down. I'm the Michael Jackson of the internet.
Not the celebrity I would have gone for,
No,
but
mine
trust
either.
is important when picking a VPN.
You guys are kind
I
of funny.
don't trust anyone after she left me. She took everything.
Francis, remember what your lawyer said?
Good point. You can trust ExpressVPN because they don't sell your data to advertisers. They've even created software called Trusted Server that means they can't store any data at all.
ExpressVPN uses Lightweight, a VPN protocol that makes user speeds faster than ever. ExpressVPN is now blazingly fast. You can watch HD videos with zero buffering.
Thousands of pounds in legal fees.
The great thing about ExpressVPN is that you don't...
guys, it's in their description if you want to take a look at it. Go back to Pearl.
Like one thing is that men shouldn't sleep.
There is some.
expressvpn.com/trigger to learn more.
She took everything.
Okay.
I think you know what? While I think the way that you're talking is quite blunt about it, there is some truth to what you're saying, and more broadly, there's other areas where I think that
there's like this is the problem is that the truth is just wildly like it's not like she's saying I think that men should be able to hit women back if they get hit. It's like, oh, she won't give you a stance on the proportionality of it. There's no nuance. And every time she's pressed to be like, yeah, but men do hit women. And she'll be like, well, no, we shouldn't be talking about gender now. Now, all of a sudden, we shouldn't be talking about gender. When she's like, well, guys are more likely to get beat up. And it's like, yeah, by other guys. But women are more likely to get abused in a relationship by men. She's like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Do you understand that there's an intentionality the way that she expresses things? There's, of course, there's truth in every lie. But the way that she comes off is like, it's just a male victim complex.
probably applies as well, right?
Yeah.
Just beyond the physical stuff. What, can you give us some other examples of what you're talking about? Things that you talk to people on the show about?
Like one thing is that men shouldn't sleep with so many women. And they'll say like men are responsible for all the whores, But I really think it's on the whores for being whores. No, I'm serious. It's like, well, they'll be like, well, if the men weren't sleeping around, but it's like, okay, what % of men can sleep around?
Right.
What are you fucking talking about? This is, okay, so, oh my God, like I'm like a fucking pearlologist. Okay, so manosphere people will justify men sleeping around. And we'll also, they'll value men for having more bodies and they'll devalue women for having more bodies. And women will be like, well, men are making the whores, whatever. It's a dumb thing to engage in, so I'm just not even going to engage specifically in it. Fundamentally speaking, if you're I understood that men want to fuck more and women want to settle down more. So it's usually considered pretty cool and base socially for a guy to fuck a lot of girls because it's usually harder than a girl trying to fuck a lot of guys. I understand the logic. At the end of the day, in any valuable or meaningful metric where any of this actually matters, when it comes to relationship satisfaction, et cetera, lower the body count for both men and women, the more satisfying the relationship is. Also, having high body counts makes you disgusting, increases your chance of STDs. I've had sex with a decent number of women, like just over 20. The bar's on the floor. I know people will be like, well, you're fat. How do you do that? It's not hard. There's also fat women. It's not difficult to have sex. I mean, I'm 6'4", decently well-spoken, and had like a fucking like a mediocre job that paid okay. It's not that hard to get women. You just have to learn to fail a lot because like 19 out of the 20 women that you hit on Tinder are going to say no. You just have to not care. That's the secret to success, guys. Be confident and don't care if you get rejected. You just keep plugging on. So there's your response there. But the whole conversation is stupid. Frankly, the only time I wanted a girl with a low body count was when I was really bad in bed. And now that I'm not, I would never want to date somebody with a low body count because I'm married. But if I wasn't married and I was still dating, I wouldn't want to date a girl who was like a virgin or a low body count because I'm looking to have good sex. Not fucking, like, that's weird. And if you notice, a lot of these male sphere guys will talk about how they refuse to eat pussy and they don't care about a girl's satisfaction. People like Sneeko and Myron have talked about how vaginas are gross. So very clearly, there's ulterior intentions there when it comes down to it.
Yeah. 1 out of 3 men are sexless. So by this logic, like, it's more on the women than the men. But it's like, then they put it on men are sexless. Well, if the men weren't sleeping around, but it's like, okay, what percent of men can sleep around?
Right.
1 out of 3 men are sexless. So
maybe what's like 1 out of 3 men between like 18 and 30 haven't had sex in the past year. That's the actual statistic, I believe. But by this logic, like, it's more on the women than the men, but it's like, then they put it on the small percentage of men that are sleeping around. Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
I don't know if you've heard that argument or not.
It makes sense when you decide to like wildly inaccurately display your information, but okay.
I haven't actually, no.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone blame the men for the fact that women are doing a lot of sleeping around. That's
really?
weird.
I hear it all the time. They always, always say like,
well, you talk to dumb women, so that's what the problem is. A lot of these male officer guys will, or people will talk to like the dumbest people. And they'll make it seem like that's like the general consensus. They'll talk to stupid people and see how dumb women are, because that argument is stupid. But that's how this usually works out.
Women, like, but the men are sleeping around when we talk about like women being whores. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, but the men slept with her too. But. I also, I think it's 100% the woman's fault if you get.
I think that's the point that they're making there, is that like women shouldn't be so shamed for having partners. Which is fine. I agree with that. You don't have to date a girl with a high body count, but you also don't need to shame them societally. So
pregnant, yeah.
It's interesting. Why?
100%. I think it's 100% the woman's fault if you get pregnant.
Well, the man, why? Like, what if the guy didn't want to wear a condom? If they both decide not to wear a condom, that's mutual stupidity. Ultimately, also, the guy decides where he's going to come. So if he's not wearing a condom and decides to come, let's say that there's at least a level of responsibility on him. I don't think that we need to sit here and decide who's more irresponsible versus not. I think it's irresponsible either way. You're a fucking idiot if you have an unintended pregnancy, and you should just do better moving forward. You know? And I'm sure people have made that mistake. I'm not trying to shit on you, but it's not the man or the woman's fault. It's both your fault, really. It's not one or the other. It's both of your fault. Be more responsible.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Why?
100%. Because we have 41 forms of birth control. And
and condoms are part of that. So
what if birth control fails?
Condoms.
What if someone someone who was using condoms and birth control?
Abortion.
Okay.
You just said that. Okay, sure. Weren't you like shaming women for wanting abortions before? I wouldn't even consider birth control or an abortion a form of birth control. It's very rare that if you use a condom and birth control, you'll have a kid. Most of the instances are like both of them being irresponsible in some capacity. But it's not 100% the woman's fault. That's just goofy.
Yeah.
But you're saying pregnant.
Adoption. I mean, I don't believe in abortion, but it's legal. So and you have 100% control over who's born as a woman.
Sure.
Adoption.
But if you have sex, there's always a risk of pregnancy. You know, so is that really fair to say?
It's also it's body traumatic to have an abortion, because not most people who have abortions aren't like, LOL, let's go to Dollar Tree and get one. You know, most people are like, oh, this is an upsetting situation. And like, it sucks. It's very stressful on somebody's body. It's not as easy as just like LOL, yes or no. So like, we should probably not undercut that. It's a very difficult decision to get an abortion. So
yes.
But I guess
because the man only has one choice. I guess you could do 2 vasectomies: condom, no condom.
Yeah.
Condom, no condom. Pull your dick out. I mean, there's a pretty big choice here. So.
Right, where the woman has like 20 choices: abortion, no abortion.
Well, here are your choices. Well, they really don't, though. Right? Like, okay, let's say we assign these to people. Men have condoms and pulling out. Those are like really the only 2. Women have birth control and abortion. Like, what? If there's 40, just because there's 41 types of birth control doesn't mean that that just means that there are brands of birth control or differences. Instead of a birth control pill, you have a fucking ring you put in your pussy. Or maybe you have a shot instead. Those are all one thing. It's basically like some form of birth control. Or an abortion. An abortion is like a really last-ditch effort. there's just as many forms of birth control for both men and women. There's a condom, and then there's like basically the pill or some form of birth control. But it all is like replaces each other. It's not like you go on a pill, plus you get the ring inside your pussy, plus you get a shot, plus you get that. It's like you'll choose one of those. So really, it's equal footing here. Again, she just has no fucking brain. So.
Plan B or no plan B? 41 forms of birth control or no 41 forms of birth control?
What are you talking about? There's only like there's not forms of birth control. They're fundamentally the same thing. They're replacements of each other. You can't count that as 41. Like, it's just stupid. Men and women have equal opportunity to not get pregnant. They're both responsible in some capacity. The men just have less accountability if they get a woman pregnant because they don't have to take care of the kid. It's higher chance that they can just walk away, maybe pay child support, and that's it. Whereas the woman still has to raise the kid, which is incredibly stressful. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
What else is there? Adoption, no adoption. Child support, no child support. Letting him have access to his kids, not letting him have access to his kids.
You can't stop a man from having access to his kids unless that person is like some kind of violent criminal. I'm just letting you know that's an objective fact. You could sit here and cry, oh, well, I didn't get access to my kids. Then you're a bad person because the court system isn't going to not let you see your kid. It might not be equal. That's usually because like women want to raise their kids more. They'll raise their kids longer, et cetera, et cetera. But you're not going to ever not be able to have access to your kids. It's not happening like that. Even if it's not as much as you'd like, you could fight for more as you keep going on. This is just a lie. It's just a stupid thing that you're saying at this point. And you know that you're being stupid. Like, there's no way that you're just fucking dumb.
Women have all the choice. So it's like, if we have all the choice, why don't we have all the responsibility?
Because there's two people involved in the creation of a child.
Right, but there's 6 choices for the woman and 1 for the man. And the other thing, like the woman can lie where the man can't. The woman can say she's on birth control, say she took the plan B, say she has an IUD, and the man could be sleeping with someone and not even know that. Where the woman knows if he's wearing a
so then wear the condom.
Condom or not wearing a condom.
And there's times where like men take off this happens somewhat normally where a man will take off a condom and what is called stealth a girl. Right? It's not right, but it does happen. So let's keep that in mind too. Yeah.
Condom. So there's only one situation, like the woman is the only one that's in a situation where she can fully consent to everything, assuming there's no rape, whatever. Because
so now men can't consent to women in sex? Wow, you're doing the same thing fucking liberals do to fucking... You're doing the exact same thing that liberals do to women, where they'll be like, a woman can never engage with a successful guy, even if it's consensual. Like, basically you can't have groupies anymore because a man will always take advantage of that. Basically that's what's happening. Like, you infantilize women when you said women can't have autonomy to consent, right? Like, I understand power dynamics, but a woman can still consent to somebody. She's doing the same thing for men though. Men can't actually fully consent. You're literally just like, they're the same fucking loser that you're just saying that men, like, you're doing it too. You're saying that men don't have agency or accountability or can't have agency over themselves because they can't truly consent. You're the same as a fucking liberal for a woman. Like, for women, you're a loser. What's happening here?
She knows all the details where the man doesn't.
Yeah,
wear a condom.
I mean, also there's several instances of a man removing a condom during sex, a woman not noticing, and a man ejaculating in a woman.
Sure.
I don't believe that.
If it doesn't align with what I have to think or say, I just don't believe that's happening. You gave a hyper-specific scenario of a woman who had 7 abortions, saying that all women are bad and disgusting whores. But then when it comes to like, hey, yeah, there is a somewhat normal practice of guys like taking condom off or pushing the boundaries to be able to take condoms off, and like you're like, no, that doesn't exist. I just don't believe that. It doesn't. No, you're stupid.
I feel like that's like a cop out, to be honest.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
I feel like
anything that
just say that.
Yeah,
believe it.
Yeah, you're a fucking idiot.
Okay.
So what I'm curious about is what happens when you say all this to a bunch of random...
I guarantee you that Pearl's a fucking virgin that's like never had sex before. There's no way. Either that or like there's no way. Like, she's just never had sex before in her life if she doesn't understand like sexual dynamics like this. This is fucking wild. Holy shit.
People that you've brought in off the street.
They're like super understanding.
Yeah, I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see that.
No,
like Americans don't get irony.
I got whale attacked for one of these opinions because this girl, I was doing street interviews, and this girl was like, I can't.
Being disrespectful to fat people, just fat women, by the way. It's not like she's also disrespecting fat men. It's only fat women. Just understand that. Like why be disrespectful? What happened to respect? These fucking manosphere people always talk about how we need to bring bullying back, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to bring bullying back. We need to bring respect back. This is fucking preposterous.
I walk home alone at night. My life is so hard. And I was just like, she was a whale, you know what I mean? And I only say
You mean she was overweight?
Very fat, yeah. And so what she did was she was like, and I was like, well, why don't you just not live in a big city? Why don't you just live somewhere safer?
What? First of all, I don't even know what's happening here. Second of all, you can't just pick up and move. You realize that, right? Like, it's a little harder. It's hard to just move. You know, the reason people don't just move is because they need to work. And usually you'll get a job in a particular area that you have to do. There's, like, the argument of just pick up and move has to be one of the dumbest arguments that I've ever heard in my life. There's so many scenarios. Like, not everybody's a fucking famous YouTuber that could just get up and go wherever they want, whenever they want. Like, Jesus Christ.
And you just not walk home alone at night in a big city.
Oh.
Men are more likely to be victims of a violent crime. And then she's like, well, and then she attacks me. She tries to, she's like, I'll have you, you slag. I didn't know what to.
Well, I mean, she shouldn't be hitting you, but like, how do you not know that you're being stupid, right? Like, so a woman's like, yeah, it's unfortunate that women can't walk alone home at night, which is unfortunate. And you have to, you know, educate women to make sure they have like a friend or something, or don't do that, because unfortunately some bad men will rape them or something, or assault them or attack them. And your argument's like, just don't do don't have like just don't do it. Just don't walk around at night. But not in a way of like, hey, that sucks and that's life. But in a way where it's like, yeah, like it's like not actually an issue. You just not do this thing. What the hell is this? What a bizarre mentality to like operate and engage with. It's just super stupid and disconnected from the entire world. Holy fuck. Jesus Christ.
Slag men. Okay, I didn't even know what a slag was, but she was like, I'll have you, you slag, I'll have you. And I was like, have me? Like, what? and so then she like knocks the mic out of my hand. My friend had to like pull her away.
Wow.
And then I got it.
Pummel her into the ground and kill her, right? That's your logic, because you wouldn't give a firm stance on that.
From my YouTube for privacy. Bitch, you attacked me. And she wouldn't leave my, yeah, sorry. So yeah, they're really understanding.
Hasn't Pearl been like DMCA striking people unjustifiably that have been disagreeing with her lately? How is she going to say that that's a problem?
Yeah.
That's so, I'm kind of lost for words a little bit, because
she was like super nice. I love Britain.
Yeah. You see some of those girls up and down high streets on a Saturday night.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on the girl. Like some girls, I've had girls say they've changed their entire opinion. Yeah. I've had some girls say they never thought of it that way.
Wow.
Have you always had these opinions, or has your view of this evolved over time?
I've always been more conservative. Some things, I recently decided that women shouldn't vote.
Wow. Yeah.
You decided women shouldn't vote?
Yeah, that's a new opinion.
Why's that?
Okay.
I'll take one for the team. Yeah.
Okay. Why shouldn't women vote?
The real reason she's saying that is because she knows it will never happen. So she gets to say this to be like a liberal, like a conservative pick-me girl. That's it. Because she knows it's so preposterous it'll never happen, so she can say whatever she wants, and she knows that like she won't have her freedoms restricted because people are always going to be like, you know, that's stupid. That's literally it. Like she gets to benefit off of the society who like actually respects women as equals, and while saying I don't want this, because she knows we can never go back, because that would be as stupid as shit. So she gets to like have this protection in this capacity. It is
because we're chemically different every single day.
Right.
What?
And like, okay, we make 70.
Hold on. Does that mean you shouldn't be on YouTube then? Because you're chemically different. Your opinions could be bullshit. Because
they could be. Yeah.
Wow.
Should I be banned off of YouTube? What does that have to do with voting?
No. You should, but you should be consistent with your values and leave YouTube. If you don't think that women have the ability to participate in voting, then they shouldn't be able to participate in like everyday conversation because they're too emotional and stupid. Like that's your logic. So you shouldn't have a YouTube channel. Who cares if women have like fluctuating emotions? That's interesting because I heard Destiny say this. It was an interesting concept. I thought it was interesting, and he said something along the lines of a woman was like, women shouldn't be able to vote because women go through constant periods and the emotional changes, this, that, and the other thing. And then Destiny was like, well, what's stopping you going from the argument that like women have the ability to manage those different emotions better because they're used to managing fluctuating emotions? Like that's an interesting concept, you know. Ultimately, like men are just as emotional as women. Men have their own like period types, like fluctuation of hormones, obviously not to the same degree. But like we look at statistics, like men express their emotions through anger, and the majority of criminals are men. And I wouldn't doubt some of it is out of anger. So maybe we stop playing this hyper obsessive game about who is too emotional in this way or the other way, and just kind of operate based on that. Because I don't think that women are constantly having fluctuations in opinion on major issues every single day. They usually have a consistent opinion. They might have like a fluctuating mood swings, but men do the same thing. We just don't have a period that glorifies it or to you know, use it to justify to take away our rights. So
it's like a false equivalency.
Okay.
So to me, it's like, okay, I feel like if shit goes south, who's going to war?
And probably,
okay. You know, I'm gonna let me start from the beginning. Sure. Let me start. Actually, I want to start from how
you don't want to be jumping on this fucking train.
I want to start with how I got this opinion.
Okay.
I want to start. Let me. Okay. Because I heard from a guy named Rollo Tomasi, genius, right? Very, very smart.
He's a pickup artist, isn't he?
No.
Do you not?
No.
I don't know anything about that.
No.
What is he?
So, no, he a lot of the stuff in the space of YouTube, like he's just like one of the thought leaders, I would say.
Okay.
But he's not a pickup artist.
No idea who that is.
Is he the Italian comedian who's in his 70s and talks about? No, it's not.
No, he's not.
No.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. We keep interrupting you.
Because I feel like when I say this, it sounds crazy.
It does a little bit.
Yeah, and when I first heard it, I thought it was crazy. Okay. But what I heard was that women didn't want to vote. So when I was like,
that's not true. So women wanted to vote. Okay, women didn't want to have to sign up for the draft to be able to vote, but women wanted to be able to vote. That's why women got the right to vote. They fought for it because they wanted to be able to vote. I mean, this is pretty much it. There's really nothing nuanced here. And now, check it out, because it doesn't really matter if those women did or didn't want to vote. Most women want to keep voting now that they have the right to do so. So even if women didn't want to vote, you could just be like, yeah, that was society conditioning them to think that they're less than and wouldn't want to vote. But there's no large group of women saying, we don't want to vote, blah, 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 blah. So her point's stupid. That being said, if you think it's unfair women don't have to sign up for the draft, I agree. But realistically speaking, we haven't done the draft in like 50 plus years, so it doesn't really matter. But that's fair to say, oh, you know, okay. So if you want, let's make women have to sign up for the draft. It's like, okay.
What do you mean women didn't want to vote?
Like the first
they threw themselves under fucking carriages to vote.
Some did, right? But was that women at large?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't. The majority of women back then, we always talk about the suffragettes, but there was also the anti-suffragettes.
Yes.
And that was the majority of women, when asked if they wanted to vote, said no. In the US.
Yeah. A lot of women too said they would want to be able to vote as long as black women didn't vote. So, but I guess that makes sense because Pearl would probably agree with that. Black women shouldn't vote because she's racist. Yeah. Check it out. Women aren't a monolith. So
I don't know what it was like here.
Okay.
You know, this is US. And I was like, why did women not want to vote?
Why, Pearl? Tell us.
So I read some of their writings from back then. Okay. And they basically said this is the beginning.
The most surprising part about this is that she can read.
Beginning of the breakdown of the family. Because back then, when you got married, you became one and you trusted your husband to make that decision. Okay. Now, that was one argument. And I was like, okay, well, but society's a little different today. Argument number 2.
Okay, so if a man can't maintain a relationship because their woman wanted to vote differently, then you're too immature to get married. Like, what a weak little piss baby. Oh, my wife disagrees with me. I can't be with her. Okay, loser. Like, Jesus Christ, how weak do you have to be? Same thing for women, too. By the way, if you do the same thing as a woman and you cry because the guy disagrees with you, you're a fucking piss baby. All right. Okay. Cool.
Back then, they had to be drafted. So any woman that wanted to vote had to go to war because you're voting in the U.S. anyway.
They didn't have to go to war. They had to be drafted.
For your commander-in-chief. Because if they go to war, who's going to have to deal with the consequence? And that's where we're at, is because if shit goes south and we go to war, the men are the one that are going to have to deal with the consequences.
I guess, but okay. I'm just a little confused because, like, are you saying that women should be able, like, there are women in the military. Of course, men will probably be generally more effective because they're stronger, but I wouldn't take away anything from a female that's in the military because, you know, I'm not in the military. I'm a pussy, right? Sure. So why not just say we shouldn't do war? Hey, let's try not to do a war. Instead of saying that women shouldn't be able to vote. Because men seem to be the ones that vote more towards war. Men are a little more aggressive, more war-torn. Didn't Dick Cheney, like, fucking engage in the war in Iraq through fucking George Bush? Just, like, unjustifiably? That seemed like a guy did that. You know, I would just say, like, an ineffective leader did that. You know, excuse me if I'm not 100% accurate on my history. But it's a little silly to say that, but okay.
So, yeah, I felt like if we want to vote, we should be equally, because women want equality, equally drafted, just like men.
I agree.
And now you're thinking we don't have to draft anymore.
We
right?
don't really draft.
However, we have selective service in the U.S., meaning that if a man, and if there's a crisis, right, and we do go to war, the men have to be, like, like they then can be taken to, I'm butchering it a little bit. Does that make sense? But, and if they don't do this, they're fined $100,000.
Okay.
Is that equal? Is that fair?
Okay, so if your point is I think that women should also have to sign up for the draft or whatever, sure, I agree. But your point is women just shouldn't be able to vote, and then you're using this as an excuse to tell them why they shouldn't be able to vote. So instead of advocating against women voting, why don't you advocate for women having to sign up for the draft? And also, I don't think that they enforce these anymore. Because, like, I signed up for the draft because my understanding is you had to, but I don't think that they do anything to you if you don't sign up for the draft anymore. I don't think nobody really cares anymore. So, selective service registration required by the laws as the first part of a fair and equitable system that, if authorized by the President and Congress, would rapidly provide personnel to the Department of Defense, while at the same time providing for an alternative system. Okay. Yeah, we haven't. When's the last time we used this? $1947. Is that it? It's not even in use today. So, okay. Yeah, let's have women do it. Whatever.
Where we have the same rights, but we don't have the same responsibilities if shit goes south. I don't think that's fair. So
sure.
I thought about it. Would I want to be in selective service if I had to pick? My answer is no. No, I will give up the right to vote to not have to do that. And I think that would be fair. I think feminists, they want equality, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, your opinion is dumb. I don't really know what else to say. Like, if your point is like, hey, let's have women sign up for selective service, sure. We haven't done the draft or that in like 50, 60, 70, 80 years or something. Mostly because like wars are fought through nuclear arms now, so obviously it would be quite catastrophic if we did something like that. But like, I think that you're just looking for a reason to try to say that you want women to lose their right to vote because you're just a conservative pick-me bitch. So, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be using such inflated language. You're a piece of poops. You're a doo-doo head.
Okay. Now, what's interesting about that is in some countries, like Israel, it's men and women do national service.
Yeah, I don't want that. So keep me out of that. Keep me.
But also women.
I think it might be a really good thing for us to like make everybody do like a year of some kind of like service, you know, in some capacity. Well, especially now that we're kind of we need something to unite under. I think that could be a really good idea. That might help us get our shit together and kind of push forward in a productive way. You know, maybe we could rally around what it means to be an American in a little bit more capacity. And maybe the part of that's by having them do selective service or some kind of service, like 1 year service in some capacity. That might be a pretty good idea to go with culturally. So I'm down with that idea. You know? Something like that. But okay, I guess you don't want to. I guess you don't love America, Pearl.
Women are far more likely to vote for peaceful and left-leaning parties.
Women are more likely to wage war. Fun fact: in the last 500 years, between.
No, it's not. She's such a stupid person. I'm ready to dump on her fucking because I know the statistics she's talking about, and she's a fucking moron.
In the last 500 years.
No.
Queens were more likely to wage war than kings.
Also, so she's referring to like England, and this wasn't in the last 500 years. It's like it was like from like 1,000 to like 1500. Either way, that statistic isn't even true. She's a fucking idiot that doesn't even read her own study. The study actually says that women leaders are more likely to engage in war, and win war, by the way. But it also says that there's an interesting dynamic, and this is the dynamic. Men who ruled kingdoms would be, obviously, they'd be the decision makers. Women who ruled kingdoms were drastically more likely to work with their male counterparts, especially since that man didn't have any reason to betray her or motivation, because if he did have her killed in some capacity, he wouldn't get the throne unless there was like some kind of a specific electoral process that like allowed him to do that. So actually, it's men and women together make more effective leaders, will engage in more war for land grabs, which happened back then, which isn't something that we do now. It's not socially acceptable. We don't do it. It happened more back then, and men and women are both more effective together than they were separately. Now, when you look at modern voting statistics, women tend to vote against war more, and so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But like, understand your own statistics for like a once in your entire life. It's just stupid as shit.
I would dispute the idea that left-wing parties are more peaceful, but
yeah. So you think, and So you genuinely believe that women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
Well, okay. I'm gonna caveat this.
Okay.
I don't think it's likely this will ever happen.
Yeah,
I'm never really gonna campaign for this to happen. Like, how could
it's a
nowadays?
grift.
However, I think the outcomes would be better.
Doubtful.
Okay.
And now this goes back into the documentary that I'm making. So I'm making a documentary on the court system here in the UK. I wish I brought my notebook because I have it all laid out in my. I should have brought my notebook. I didn't. But the issue in the UK is that men only get custody of their kids 10% of the time. Would you agree that it's crazy?
No, probably not. You'd have to ask the reasons why men get custody of it 10% of the time. I'm going to guarantee to you that it's because the women want to be more involved. Also, define custody. Are you saying full custody or partial custody? Like, we have to look into these specifics. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she means full custody. Just because men get full custody only 10% of the time doesn't necessarily mean that the men wanted custody to the same proportionality that women did. And I guarantee you that the women wanted to be more active in their kids' lives than the men. So that doesn't necessarily display any inequality. If anything, that you could say, oh, it's an inequality to men, or it's an inequality in the sense that women prefer raising their own kids more or are more active, which makes logical sense. As a baby's growing in the womb, that is more of a human to that woman than to the man. They're bonding with that child inside of them. It's not until like the bonding process starts after birth that it'll happen for a man. And so if you have a man who's not involved in their child's life, they're not going to develop a bond to that child. So that's not crazy at all.
Yes.
Would you agree if your kid, you should get 50-50 custody?
It depends.
Off the bat.
It depends. Well, I actually don't agree with that.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, like, that's up to the courts to decide. I don't even know exactly what 50-50 custody means. Maybe. I trust that for the most part, we've gotten our decent system down. But do these men want 50-50 custody? Is it healthy swapping them between households once every other week? I don't know if that's true. I think it's good that they get partial custody. There should be a primary parent. It should be a man or a woman, depending on who wants it. I don't really care who. But I don't know if it's healthy. What are they going to do? Switch every week? Do they switch school systems? How does this work, like infrastructure-wise? How is this for the... I mean, I don't think that it necessarily matters.
And I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. And this will make me very problematic because I'm suggesting that men and women are different. But as someone who has a young child, they're way better off with their mother on average.
Under the age of 8. Over the age of 8, the kids have better outcomes with the father.
Yeah, so again, another dumb fuck statistic from moron McGee over here that doesn't read statistics. And I'm going to be as rude as possible because she's just such a fucking idiot. So first of all, like, I tend to agree that, like, if you had to choose between one or the other, it should be the mother. That being said, number 2, the parent that wants to have their kid should have their kid more, right? Lastly, this statistic that they're talking about, you have to ask why. Why is it that the kids have better outcomes under the men? Well, like we said before, I'm sure that like these kids are just looking for parents that love them. But it's because, one, men make more money, which is something that'll go away if they're paying child support, or to some extent, or if they're more active in their kids' lives. Number 2, and this is the bigger statistic, is that a man who is considered single, which just means that they're separated from the mother, is 3.5 times more likely to live with a woman or live with a partner that will help take care of their kid than a woman is. So the statistic isn't men are better. The statistic is that men and women will have a better outcome with a child than just one parent. Because again, it says single parent, but it's not defined as not being able to date. They are 3.5 times more likely to be in a relationship with a woman or another person that will help raise their kid with them. So men aren't better parents. Men tend to have more money, and women are more likely to help raise another woman's kid. That's the real statistic. That's it. It's not that deep. Now, we don't have to really play this game of back and forth of like who's better, who's worse, who's this, who's that, because at the end of the day, women want to have their kids more than men do. That's just the reality. But the way that she's interpreting this statistic is disingenuous and unintelligent.
Single father homes have significantly better outcomes than single
Under their
mother.
age of 8, though, they need the mother.
True.
But it's all case specific, because if the mother is a psycho, then no, and if the father is abusive, then no, right?
or has addiction issues or whatever else.
I personally think that it's 50-50. It's 50% his DNA. He should, off the bat, be entitled to 50-50 custody. Now, they could talk about it based on his work schedule and then switch it, you know, but off the bat, 50-50 custody. Would you agree that 10% of the time, men getting access to their children being the primary custody holder, like that's
there you go, a primary custody holder. It's not crazy. Most of the men don't fight for primary custody. And a lot of times if they are, or a lot of times parents will unfortunately use their kids as bargaining tools to try to like hurt the other partner, which is really disgusting. Like, what's the percentage of the men that want 50-50 custody? It's not going to be, it's not going to be 50%. So she's saying that men only get 50%. They're not asking, or for 10%, they're not asking for 50%. But what are you talking about?
That's insane.
There's a lot of problems with the way that divorce is handled, etc. I mean, I know people who, someone who was married for a couple of years, they were both professional people working. Her career and income were not in any way affected. And then they divorced after a couple of years, and she got a shit ton of his money for no fucking reason.
Yeah, I'll tell you about this guy.
Could have happened. I don't really know. Usually you just split 50-50, like after assets, so I don't know what he's exactly referring to. So there could be a problem, but okay.
That I interviewed yesterday, and it's going to tie into the voting thing, but it's just going to take a second. So he has 3 daughters.
Okay.
3. And he was married to a good girl for 10 years.
Okay.
She was like of a Muslim background, so they had like the same, does that make sense? Same
Yep.
background.
Sure.
The marriage ended, right?
Okay.
And all of a sudden there was a restraining order put out against him and an allegation of abuse.
Okay.
Why was there allegations of abuse? Because in the UK, you get free lawyers if you claim that the man abused you. So now he has to pay.
Or maybe he actually abused them. Now, I don't know. That's for the courts to decide. But to instantaneously believe him over her is stupid. You're being dumb. Maybe it is. Maybe she is taking advantage of the system. Or what's probably more likely is that he's abusing her, or he was abusing her, and that's why she left. But either way, you took just the guy on, listened to his like what he said, and instantly believed him because he's speaking negatively to a woman. So good job, Pearl. You're really doing your due diligence on that one. Wow, she's so dumb. Good stuff. Instantly believe all men, but instantly say all women are the problem, guys. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do more in society. Isn't it interesting where a woman will be like, I was abused? She's like, no, that probably didn't happen. You probably hit first. You probably did this. The guy goes, I didn't abuse this person. Oh, you're right. Everything's holy fuck.
For a house that's not his. Okay, so he has to, because the house is in his name, and he's kicked out of the house because of the restraining order.
Okay.
He doesn't have access to his kids, and on top of that, he has to pay child support every month.
Okay.
He loses his job because he's he's homeless now. Loses his job, he doesn't have access to his kids.
Well, that's not something that's good. How do you lose his job, though? Like, they wouldn't make him lose his job over... What? How do you lose his job? I mean, you shouldn't lose your job. That's an issue, sure. But now it makes me think, well, why? What did he do to lose his job? Was he actually abusive? Is that completely separate? Are we going to go with the conspiracy theory that he quit his job so he wouldn't have to pay child support because he's petty? Maybe. If we're going to go down the conspiracy train that this never happened and this guy's completely innocent, because I'm sure that's true. Like, where does this end here? This is just preposterous.
It's because he's working in like electricity or something.
Wow.
And it's like a very high stress job, and like you can't have a guy that's
who's not focused.
Yeah. So he
got fired for being negligent on the job? Is that what you're telling us? That's what it sounds like you're saying here. He got his negligent on the job and he got fired. That sucks. I'm sure it's upsetting to him, you know. But to instantly think that he's not an abusive person, like, why? Maybe he is. Like, let the courts settle that out. I doubt that you can just say he's abusive and instantly win unless there was some form of evidence to at least, like, you can't just go to the police and go, I was abused, and be like, okay, we're gonna arrest. You usually have to have something, like bruises or this or that or something. So
he loses his job. Now his option is he goes to the lawyers, right?
You think that she meant he lost his job because he didn't have a stable spot to live? Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that sucks.
And the lawyers, he has 2 choices. He can either accept the restraining order and accept and plead guilty basically to abuse, or he can pay 20 to 30,000 pounds and fight for his kids. And the odds he gets his kids is 10%. And this time,
well, that's not what he's fighting for. He's fighting against the abuse charge, not to get his kids necessarily. So I would definitely, if somebody falsely accused me of being abusive, I would fight it. Hot take, guys. Holy fuck. Hot is probably the spiciest take of the century, if you ask me. But okay, sure.
And the mom is no longer letting him see the kids. They're a mile away from him, 3 daughters.
Okay, well, if he's abusive, I wouldn't either.
He hasn't seen them in a year and a half.
Oh, that sucks.
So what happens next?
It sounds like he was abusive if they went that hard on him. If the courts are like, did he like? I don't. It sounds like I don't. If somebody said that I was abusing them, and I wouldn't be able to see my kids, I would fight it. So maybe he took the plea deal, which means that you're pleading guilty to doing it. Maybe it's because it's expensive. Maybe it's because you did it and you don't feel like fighting it. Maybe you're making excuses because you know some dumb fucking moron will justify any bad decision that you make and any bad action that you cause. Maybe he is a victim, but we'll never know because Pearl filters male victim complex through every single thing that she says and feels and thinks. So
tries to fight. Now he's broke and he goes to court. And the problem is these girls go to women's shelters, and at the women's shelters they basically know the system of how to get the most money and the most time with the kids, right?
What?
And the other issue with the lawyers is that because they get free counsel from
so now any woman who goes into an abuse shelter is just playing the system. Fucking awesome. Incredible.
Women's shelter, what incentive do they have to really help the guy? I mean, their number one clients are women. Okay. So a lot of these men are given bad advice in court. So now it takes him a year and a half to even be able to fight the restraining order, to even get a chance to get access to his children.
Okay.
Like and remember, just one phone call. You can't go home. You don't have your kids.
Okay. So
then he tries to fight it.
Okay.
And now he's still in court over the whole thing, right? But this is where a lot of men commit suicide. I certainly.
I mean, if he's that abusive, I don't know. Maybe it's not the worst, but you know what? That's terrible. I don't know. It really sounds like, based on all these conditions, that this guy probably is abusive, and that's why he's having such a hard time, because there's sufficient evidence to put him in this situation. Now, I could be wrong, but to instantly believe that he's innocent or guilty is silly. Let the courts decide. Is the court perfect? No, but this sounds like a situation where this guy might have actually been abusive. Like, my wife can't just go, "Oh, he was abusing me," and then like instantly win and like, "Haha, lol, we're all good." Like, it takes a lot more than that. So
would think about it if I was in that situation where they took, and he's in his 40s and 50s. It's not like he's a young guy.
Wow, he's in his 40s and 50s at the same time.
40.
Holy shit.
40. So you can imagine everything being, like, your business being taken, your house being taken, your kids being taken tomorrow.
Sure.
Now the question is, why is this legal for her to do this? There's no repercussion.
Because maybe he's not the victim that he's claiming. Hot take: a lot of guilty people will lie, men and women. Oh, it's a fucking crazy statistic I just brought up. Is it possible he's lying? And that maybe you're instantly validating him because you want a woman to be called out for being a bad person?
Like, isn't that a fair question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, why is it legal for her to deny access to the kids with no legal repercussion? Oh, actually, let me
maybe
get
because
through it.
it actually
So let's say he gets his kids. Let's say he gets to court, he fights it, he wins, and if he doesn't get primary custody, which he only could get 10% of the time, so most likely he loses, spends all this money and all this debt, still paying for his old house. He could get his kids 6 days a month. Finally, the court gives him his kids.
Okay.
She can just do it all over again. She can.
What? How would she do it all over again if she? First of all, if they did okay, so I don't think that Pearl's ever like walked outside. If she actually was faking it and they find out that she was lying the entire time, she's gonna get punished for it. If it turns out that she was like faking the abuse charge, I think they call it fraud. There's a word for it. Also, how could she do it again if he proved his innocence? There's no way that would happen. What are you talking about? There's no fucking shot that this would happen.
And she can just file another restraining order. It takes him a year and a half. The other issue,
what?
It takes
for what
happens to 2 years without seeing your kids? It's a different child.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what she's been telling the kid. They might not even want to see you after 2 years.
Maybe.
Why is this legal?
But if he's
like, why? And that's
you haven't given us anything. You gave us one anecdotal situation where like you instantly believe the guy was the victim. I like what the fuck are we supposed to believe here? Like, let the courts settle it.
My question, like, why on earth is this legal? Like, this is an atrocity. I started asking my Uber drivers. There are so many Uber drivers that I've had that talked about how they're Ubering because their ex-wife screwed them over in divorce.
Maybe.
So why is this happening? Family court, okay? It's not based on if you're guilty or if you're innocent. It's based on a balance of probabilities. So you can accuse someone of something with no evidence and no repercussions. And
doubtful.
Again, the women's group comes in with all their lawyers. The man comes in broke. He comes in with nothing. Half the time, he can't even defend himself. And if he does,
Again, the reason that there is such robust women's groups is because of historically men being abusive with the women with no repercussions. So, I mean, if you're saying that the system has gone too far in the opposite direction, maybe we could talk about it. But you're not a trustworthy narrator to this topic because you just hate women.
$20,000 to $30,000. The lawyers do not have his best interest at heart. Now
well, of course they do. They want to win. Why wouldn't they? Like would be his. They just want to win. Like, what do you mean they don't have the best interest? Why do you think that?
Let's say he gets lucky, right? He wins. He gets the kids for 6 days a month. What happens?
Okay.
She can do it over again, and it's legal.
You just said
because
that.
the politicians pander to women because the biggest swing voting group is women.
What?
And what incentive do the men have? Do the politicians have to change the laws when they're not going to be reelected? And that's happening right in front of our eyes.
And what do you think should happen instead?
It should be 50-50 custody off the bat.
Probably not.
I think they should not have free counsel just like for abuse, because it went up 200.
We shouldn't have free counsel for abused women, guys. That's a fucking preposterous, in my opinion. Women who get abused, they should just kind of have to, like, they should just suck it up and do better. So one of the reasons why these women are probably abused is because the man, especially in a traditional relationship, we talked about how she was a good woman in Islam. It's nothing to do with Islam, but like very traditional conservative relationships where the man is the one that like is that making the most of the money and is defended by like their religious law in a way where like they are the ones that's supposed to be able to make every decision. Like that can create a system of abuse easily. It's not specific to Muslim people. It's any religious, like overly conservative or traditional religious group. So yeah, I wouldn't doubt that he was being abusive. Let's the courts figure it out. But the whole story she told me doesn't really express to me that he's innocent. He just believed her. She just believed her instantly.
Allegations of abuse went up 200% in 2013 when they switched that law in the UK. So I think that it should be 50-50 custody off the bat. And I don't, in terms of restraining orders, I don't think it should be that easy to just get a restraining order against a guy. But the problem is in the courts too, is that it's based on, you only have to convince one judge. And we're in a society where if a woman cries and is saying, oh, he abused me, he did this, we just automatically believe them.
I want to try to find this. In 2013, abuse went up in the UK. Where does she have a source for this? I don't know. How do I even like start trying to find this statistic? I'm looking it up and there's nothing here. So let me just engage with, let's pretend this is true. I can't find a single statistic on this, so it's probably not, but let's say it's true. And what it sounds like she's saying is that he implemented this institution that where women who were abused were able to get free lawyers. Her argument is that what happened is that women were playing the system and they were only getting a lawyer now that it was free to take advantage of the guy. But who's to say that there aren't women that are like, oh my God, I finally have like an ability to defend myself because the government gave me that access. I'm going to defend myself. Now, it could be both. It's probably a mixture between the two. But for her to instantaneously say that, oh, it's all abuse, it's all fake, is fucking wild. It's fucking wild. I think the problem is Pearl hates her mother because she would always harass her for being fat. And that's why she likes her father more. And she has like a broken home type of a situation. But that's like a wild thing for her to say. Like, it's just silly. Like, Jesus.
I mean, when's the last time a girl said to you or anyone in a room that they were raped, they were assaulted, they're anything, and anyone really asked questions? And I didn't. When I first started the show, I just openly...
I mean, what... It's not like a casual conversation that I'm usually having, but...
believed women. But then you start asking questions, and shit doesn't add up.
Okay.
And a lot of times at these women's shelters, they're instructing the women with what to say.
Yeah, sure. One of the problems, though, is that you think that a woman not instantly going to the police means that she couldn't have been sexually assaulted. So, you're not a good narrator to this conversation. You shouldn't be the one having it. That's the reality. To
get the most money out of the men. And oftentimes that's accusing them of abuse. So, the idea that, like, there are repercussions for women voting, and a lot of times it's at the expense of men because all of the politicians are catering to the women because they are the biggest swing voting group. So
what you're saying is that men are, because most politicians are men, are catering to the women and manipulating them into voting for them. Wow. That's incredible. Wow. Well, I mean, it surely all seems to lead back to men being the problem, huh, Pearl? I don't think that, but that's your logic. No? Oh, the politicians are just pandering to these women. Oh, it's a problem. Well, politicians are mostly men, right? So the men are pandering to the women by giving them whatever they want for power. Sounds like we should stop blaming women for everything, or men, and we should focus on politicians? Wait, what the fuck? I don't think anybody's ever said that before. Incredible stuff.
Wouldn't I mean, there's a lot of counter arguments to what you're saying, but wouldn't one of them be that we lived in a society in which, because men were the ones that had the vote, and by the way, actually men mostly didn't have the vote for quite a long time as well. It was just rich men. But
yeah, true. I think something you needed was to be like specifically a property owner as well.
I would be okay with that too.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
But
I just feel like why do you get to say in something you're not paying into? Men pay into it way more than women do.
That's because men make more money. What they do, women do pay into it though. Who cares? You shouldn't have to be rich or poor or a woman or a man or a black or white or whatever to be able to vote. You should just have that right. Because then if you're only able to vote if you're rich, then what's stopping you from voting in your best interest to make sure that poor people stay poor so that you're the one that maintains control? Oh, well, I never thought of that because I'm a fucking dumb idiot that doesn't think about anything. Oh, okay, there you go.
I mean, women now earn more, particularly young women, than young men.
Yeah, but on average across society, men pay way more.
I think that's up to the age of like 28. I understand what they're saying though, but okay.
Thanks. Particularly over the course of a lifetime.
Sure, who cares?
Partly it's because women take time to have children. And I mean, that's also another argument there. Like, you can't just measure your contribution to society by the amount of tax you pay.
True.
Bringing up the next generation is a hugely valuable thing that women do. They're not paid for it necessarily, right? But
shouldn't those women do that with their husbands?
Well, how do you mean?
Like, why do we want to be in, like, you should have the same opinions. You should be voting for the same person as your husband.
Why?
Why?
He's got a lefty girlfriend who annoys everyone. Well,
she does annoy everyone. Yeah. And she's.
I just think it's better for the family unit if everyone's on the same page. Like, I don't know. You want to be in a house where you're arguing about politics?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want someone who thinks differently to me.
That's what we do. We argue about politics all the time.
Bro, if you're not mature enough to have a conversation, a difference in opinion, then you, like I said this earlier, you shouldn't be having kids or you shouldn't be married to that person. Like, you're a loser. I don't know what to tell you. You don't, like, if you're arguing constantly over political differences, like you have a problem. Like, you're like a weirdo. Like, you should be able to engage. Like, it's so funny that one of the biggest issues, especially that comes from right-leaning people, and I agree with this issue, is that people won't come to the table and have conversations with the people or each other. I agree with that. But then she's like, well, everybody should just agree perfectly. The man should be able to run everything, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Not with my wife, by the way, but with Frances, who's my work wife.
Yeah.
We think.
I mean, that's fine. I just think, like, I just prefer more traditional relationships
than be in one.
So I just prefer relationships where you're submitting to your husband's authority.
Then quit your job. You shouldn't be expressing your opinion on, like, you're a literal working woman. Like, just quit your job if you don't believe that you should be doing that. No man wants you. Realistically speaking, with her type of work ethic, only a fucking, like, liberal will want her. Only a guy who isn't self-conscious about not being the breadwinner is going to want her. That's just a kind of a fact at this point. So find that guy. That's pretty much all you can really do. I mean, that's where we're at here. So do that.
Already.
Okay, but that's great. Like, sign me up.
Yeah.
But there are lots of women who don't want that. Shouldn't they be allowed to do that?
Yeah, they can. I mean, I can't take away the vote. It's here. But I actually would be okay with, you know what, I've thought about this too. Because, I like when women really not to be able to vote. I feel like the outcomes, my opinion, to be more precise, it's probably that the outcomes would be better if women didn't vote. I'll take one for the team. However, I would be okay with the taxpayer thing, but where it's like only net taxpayers can vote.
No, well, that in this country would mean half the country doesn't vote.
Yeah.
Which I'm down.
I just feel like, okay, because if you're voting, if I'm getting free stuff from the government, why would I ever vote against that? So then you're just gonna get more free stuff and more free stuff. Like, it's just.
Pearl, can I ask you something?
Sure. But rich people get free stuff from the government all the time. When you have people making 10 times the amount of other people paying the same effective tax rate, when you have big banks and corporations failing and then getting massive bailouts, you want to sit here and criticize individuals who want to be able to put food on their table. Why aren't you criticizing the banks who are literally robbing people of money? They're making terrible financial decisions and they have no accountability. The biggest recipients of welfare, the most harmful recipients of welfare, are rich people. Are businesses, corporations, banks who constantly get bailouts in some capacity, who use that money to like bolster their stockholders instead of make the business more effective, who underpay their workers despite the fact that they make billions and billions of dollars. Like, literally, you're like, oh, well, why would they vote against that? Well, hey, let me ask you a question. Walmart gets to severely underpay their workers despite bringing home record profits every single year in egregious ways, and then they get to subsidize that payment by having their workers go on welfare. Why isn't there any, like, why not make, if Walmart can afford it, why not make them pay more? They're using the welfare system to not pay their workers. Why don't you think about it like that? Oh, well, I'm fucking dumb. You're dumb. You don't think. You just say things. You don't understand how like rich people and corporations have like tons of money to be able to lobby to make themselves richer and take away money from fucking poor people and middle class individuals. That's why like the gap is going up more and more and more between rich and just fucking like middle class. We're living in a technological crisis where like technology is displacing jobs and driving down wages, putting more money into the pockets of rich people, and like people are losing their jobs and they have to go on welfare or they'll fucking die. But you think it's like all like LOL fun time, and there are people who take advantage of the system, but overall it's rich people who are doing it. It's corporations who are doing it. Instead of sitting here and jerking yourself off talking about how poor people are bad because you're just a dumb fucking like right-wing grifting idiot that doesn't have any concept of understanding of anything that you're saying, why don't you come to the fucking table and come to like the realization that the real problem isn't men or women. The real problem is rich people, and they're fucking us, and this is just a distraction. Fucking going on, oh, men are the problem, oh, women are the problem, oh, blah, 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 blah. All right? I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, you have a stupid way of thinking. Like, you don't understand what you're saying. So,
yeah.
And she grew up rich, of
There's
course.
There's a combination of things going on here.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I actually think some, not all, but some of the things you say objectively are not untrue. And what I mean by that is they're true, right? But also, is there a part of you that's saying them in the way that you're saying them because you're being a bit of a troll? Yeah.
Am I saying them
the way that you're saying
I do say things for comedic effect at times.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, she's not funny.
I don't say things I don't.
She says it for shock value, just so that she can get attention. She's a toddler. She's a baby that wants attention. That's why she says things the way that she says them, because she's desperate for attention and validation, because she never got that when she was growing up. Because she had rich, neglectful parents that didn't give a fuck about her, gave her everything that she wanted, and she never like grew a personality. That's all we're down to. That's all it is. And she realizes that she's unintelligent and talentless, and the only thing that she's good at is being a pick-me girl for the manosphere. And that's why a lot of people in the manosphere don't even like her. Because they could tell, even though I disagree with like everything that I've seen from the manosphere, because the most popular individuals are fucking literally sitting here blaming women for being raped. At least they believe what they're saying, when Pearl doesn't. She doesn't believe anything that she's saying. She would say anything if she could make money. That's all it comes down to.
Don't believe. I change my opinion sometimes. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, but
He
what
said
I mean,
yes. He said no.
he said yes as in just to go along with it. But
Yeah.
what? No, it doesn't answer my question, because I guess what I'm asking you is, are you saying things in a more incendiary, inflammatory way because you know that gets attention?
You mean like calling women whales?
Yes.
No, I just think it's funny.
Wow, she has like the ugliest laugh I've ever seen. I just find it so weird that based on like her own like system of like the way that she values women, that she like talks like this. Oh, women are whales. Yeah, but Pearl, you lost the weight and you still look like the most effective scarecrow in the fucking farm. Like, you're not very attractive. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're okay, but like at least a fat girl can lose weight to get more attractive. Where are you? You look like a fucking top-heavy hanger. You look like somebody put a dress on a fucking hanger in the closet. You're just completely triangular. Like, I don't understand how you can be so like weirdly like rude about people being overweight, and then not you're like at least be attractive if you're going to do that. Like, you're okay, but like based on your own standards, you're not very attractive. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, oh, you're fat. Okay, you're right, but I'm also generally respectful. But you're going around calling all your fat. It's not even all people. It's just fat women. Like, she has this thing. She's obsessed with like shitting on women. It's not like she's like even criticizing fat men. It's exclusively women. You're acting like you're a fucking bombshell, but nobody wants to date you. Nobody wants to be with you. And it's pretty clear that you want to be with them. You're desperate to fucking gargle like any fucking cum that comes your way. So like, why is it that these women that you're saying are just ugly, fat women, how is it that they are in relationships and they're happy and you're not? Like, what do you, like, you have no friends. Like, your own friends are like literally shitting on you right now because of your dumb fucking racism. So like, what are you talking about? Am I being mean? Yes, I'm being mean. Disrespect is met with disrespect. Like, that's what it comes down to. I don't care. Like, it's like just it's prompted. I don't know what you want me to tell you. It's just like embarrassing for her. It's just dumb shit. You date her for the clout? Yeah, based.
Men can be whales too, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
I just don't say it.
It means something different. But
the men wail. No, okay, I need to say this.
All right.
The men wails accept their outcomes. They don't complain.
That's
and
true.
that's what I'm sick of.
Well, no, that's not true.
The male
what about
wails.
incels?
The male. Oh, what percent? Come on.
True.
Like,
first of all, yes, incels constantly complain. Second of all, the reason that men don't complain about their weight as much as women is because men aren't targeted for their weight as much as women. All right, nobody, like, that doesn't happen nearly to the same degree. Women get the shit end of the stick, and it's because we've historically only valued women for their looks in society. So if they're not, if they don't look like, if they're not skinny and I don't want to fuck them, I have to make fun of them. That's the dynamic is different. Women get dunked on more. That's why you see women being more of like the ones that are representing body positivity, because men don't usually care as much because they're not bullied as much. Men are still bullied for it. And it's a problem too. But that's what it is. Women are more bullied for this.
You're telling me there's a whole body positive movement. There's a whole no, you're telling me it's the same. Like, but this is the other thing we have in society. See, he did it. It's like whenever we talk about anything with the women, the automatic reaction is but men. Yeah. But men. What? Like it's like a pattern that I noticed. And yeah, because
it's to show the inequality. You do the but men, you do the but women thing every single time. What are you talking about? And what he's saying, he's just trying to hold you to the same standard, but he's exposing that you just are anti-woman.
The men wails, they accept their outcomes. They know they're not getting laid. They know they're not doing it. The women.
You act like it's hard for a fat guy to get pussy. Like, fat women exist. Well, they know they're not getting laid. What are you talking about? It seems like most of these incels are like fucking disgusting, like skinny little fucking nerds that only drink Mountain Dew. Oh, like being fat isn't that bad. It's bad for your health, of course. But like, it's not. Like, the way that you think about things is just ridiculous. Like, it's not hard to get pussy as a fat guy. It's fucking crazy that we believe this. It's hilarious. Okay.
And they whine. I'm just like, stop whining. You chose to be fat. Yeah.
There's also
a little more complicated than that. Obviously, people emotional and stressy, but we do need to take more accountability and lose weight, of course. So
a double standard in terms of obesity, in that, like, for men, it's okay to, like, I
also, women are more obese than men. Thank you, in the U.S. anyway. I don't know here. But
maybe. I don't know if that's true, but okay.
We've noticed
70 to 80% of women are.
We've noticed when we were in the U.S. But,
okay.
I used to take the piss out of Francis for being overweight, and that was fine. He's lost weight. And he's a bit miserable now because he doesn't get to eat the food that he likes, but he's healthy.
Well, they're also friends. That's different, but...
Right. I don't think if Francis was female...
More than 1 in 3 men and more than 1 in 4 women are overweight. This says that men are more overweight. This is from America. What is she talking about? The percentage of men who are overweight is 34% higher than the percentage of women. What? Wait, where is she getting her statistic from? I'm confused.
It would be in any way acceptable for me to sit here and joke about that and for us to have that kind of banter.
Yeah, she couldn't take it. No, you can't.
Yeah. But so to go back to the comment, when you said I agreed, what I was saying was, yes, I see your point, but, so for instance with Wales, and I'm approaching this from a comedian's point of view, okay, in that I know the language that I use will elicit a particular response. And
yes, she knows too.
That words will elicit a particular response. My choice of language will elicit a particular response from an audience member, depending on what button I want to push. Mm-hmm. Are you as methodical as that?
No.
I just. Well, she's not intelligent, but I guess that is the goal. It's to piss off women and like appeal to men so she can make money, of course.
Can you not tell? Look, I just say shit I think is funny. I mean, true, right? But funny. Okay. And I think it's funny to call them whales. Yeah. And when I call them whales, I'm not talking about, all right, because this is the other thing. Well, what about the nice whales? Okay. Half the whales that I call whales, they call me ugly first. Okay. And that's what that one.
Well, no, that's just not true. Nobody looked at you and said you're ugly until after you disrespected them first. Like, you didn't get any hate until after this whole... What are you talking about?
One girl did, because this is how... I'll tell you how the whale incident started. This is how I started calling women whales.
Yeah, you said that fat whales don't... Like, fat women, you called them whales, don't deserve love. Specifically fat women. And then you went, well, actually, I meant like that, And then you just rambled like an idiot. And you're like, nobody deserves love. But that's not your original point. You're being disrespectful to fat women because you know that like a man will eat it up. That's all it comes down to. Now, again, being overweight is going to reduce your ability to have like to be able to get somebody or get somebody that is not as overweight. Like, yeah, and it's not good to be overweight. Of course, it's going to change your chances, right? You know, if you're a big person, you're probably going to have to stick dating other big people. But that's not the same as saying that you don't deserve love. It's just a stupid thing to say. And she's just hate farming. That's all it is.
Because this woman, the one that attacked me, the whale attack, she was like,
her.
I'll have you, you slag. She called me a slag first, so I called her a whale back. So I was like, you're a whale. You're a whale. She started it. I just finished it, you know.
Wow.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get on well with women generally, Pearl?
They love me.
Okay.
A small minority, I imagine.
No, actually,
Yeah,
I've always
yeah.
had like girlfriends. So
Do you know what? I have to say,
All your friends are leaving you publicly saying you're a gross person. So
in your defense, not that I'm agreeing with this, I increasingly do see women, particularly on the right, like Jessica Vaughan, who's a friend of mine on Twitter. I just opened my Twitter, she's like, yeah, women shouldn't vote. I was like,
I just think the outcomes would be better. Like, I feel like if we took, I'm a conservative. So
how many times are we gonna like bring up this point?
Got the way, it would go my way more.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would go. What is your way? What does that mean?
I'm more conservative.
Okay, but what does that mean?
In the U.S., Republicans winning.
Okay.
I mean, that is factually correct, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like, personally, so me, I'm like, I think the outcomes would be better for America if it was more Republican. So I'll take.
There's literally no platform that Republicans are like going advocating on except for anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. They don't give a fuck about poverty, healthcare, anything. It's literally just saying no. They're not coming to the table on anything. They're obsessed with gay people. That's all Republicans and conservative content creators are talking about is LGBTQ. Like, come to the table with something else, but they're just obsessed because they have nothing else except for hate farming. Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, well, I don't like LGBTQ people. By the way, here's a plan to reduce prices of healthcare. They just don't have anything, so they play up their issue with that. That's all it boils down to.
One for the team, guys. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you.
And what does that mean, the outcomes?
The outcomes. Well, one thing I would like to see is the laws change in terms of child custody. I think it should be 50-50, or maybe even take the government out of it. I mean, I'm not like a diehard politics person, to be honest. So I'm pro-life, so I think that would be a better outcome for me, pro-gun.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't want to pay a lot of taxes. So take out the taxes, take out the government benefits.
So basically what you're saying is women vote
So
less.
basically just have society be destroyed by the like we literally, not for nothing, as much as you want to hear, we have to increase government control. We're coming into a technology era where technology is reducing the ability or the necessity for people to actually have to work. And that means that rich people are going to profit more and more, which means we're going to have to figure out a way to expand welfare. Whether you want to hear this or not, it's just it's an objective fact. I don't know what else you want me to tell you. And so like we have to figure out ways to do it correctly without sacrificing society. I think we should go more towards like a UBI or some kind of a negative income tax or something so that people can still work. And they don't, because part of the issue with our current welfare system is there's a conditionality that makes it difficult to actually work without losing your benefits, right? But like realistically speaking, rich people want to pay lower taxes, and despite the fact that they benefit massively off of tax benefits, roads, bridges, police officers, fire departments, just fundamental safety, et cetera,
left, and because you're on the right, you'd like women not to be able to vote.
I think the outcomes would be better if women didn't vote, for me.
Yeah.
But, and also, like, women are just more swayed by, like, media. So we make 70 to 80% of consumer buying decisions.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't make you more swayed by media. That just means that women, like, literally, you know how this, like, if you're in a relationship, you already know this, that just means that women are the ones that make the decisions for, like, what color your fucking walls are, what couch to buy. That's literally it. That's very normal for men to, like, they'll usually be more concerned, like, in my dynamic with my wife, I don't give a shit what my house or even my own bedroom looks like. She does. But when it comes to buying a car or doing any big expenditure, like, I'm the one that makes that decision. That's how we've decided to allocate it. Of course, we both have the ability to rein in, but that's just how each of us just divvies it up in our minds. We don't really give a shit. That doesn't make them more swayed by media because they make more decisions on the fucking wallpaper or whatever, or wall paint. What are you talking about?
I just feel like women, like, we're just not as logical. We're men.
Yeah, it's interesting how you just constantly say, this is how I feel. I feel like. It's ironic that you're sitting here. And so I guess maybe that's why you're emotional and you're assigning that to every other woman.
So off of like women, we vote based on how we feel, where men will look at like the pros and the cons of something.
Like what?
So
she's making good points, mate.
yeah, it's like okay, we don't even know. We don't even know what we want for dinner.
Hey guys, let's completely eradicate the welfare system that would collapse our country. That's a good decision. That's a really good decision, guys. Holy fuck. Hey, guys, despite that, it's objectively true that in every other first world country that has universal healthcare, they have better outcomes, even if there are some negatives like higher wait times, but they have better outcomes, better qualities of life. Let's desperately say we should include some kind of universal healthcare system. Well, I'm looking at the information objectively. No, you're not. Like, we pay more for healthcare in our fucking system. and we don't even have like as much access. Like you're being silly. This isn't something that men do. Good people do that, but fucking idiots don't. Like she's trying to just say that like somehow magically conservatives are like what, you're not beheld to like fucking government corruption. That's fucking incredible.
Okay, we don't even know what we want for dinner. Do you think we should pick the leader of the free world? And they'll be like, well, not all women. Okay, I think I know more successful.
Yeah, it's a silly meme that like my wife doesn't know how to pick what she wants for dinner, and I'll suggest something, but that doesn't have like, okay, I don't know how to engage with this because it's just fucking insane. My wife seems to be pretty educated on social issues. Usually thinking about dinner is something you do in about a minute, so sometimes it can take a while. But okay. I feel like it's a little different between choosing the president and what meal. You know, you usually get a couple of years to think about that, but okay.
Women than most. Just being in that line of work. I know a lot of women that have done well. I played
wow.
I had a pro volleyball contract.
Hey guys, I'm a rich woman. I know other rich women. Holy fuck.
Offered. I know a lot of women in sports that played at the highest level, that have achieved a lot of things. At the end of the day, we're all still women.
Okay.
So I'll take one for the team, guys. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So that being the case, we can all agree that America is more right-leaning than the UK.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm not a diehard politics person.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty standard viewpoint. So so why the UK then, Pearl, as opposed to America?
Oh, I'll tell you why. So I didn't mean.
Let me see this.
So I'll take one for the team, guys. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So that being the case, we can all agree that America is more right-leaning than the UK.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'm not a diehard politics person.
But I think that's a pretty standard viewpoint. So so why the UK then, Pearl, as opposed to America?
Oh, I'll tell you why. So I didn't mean to end up here. Yeah, I didn't mean to. It was like an accident. So before you.
That makes sense as to why she's like, people should just move, because she has the resources to just accidentally end up in fucking like Europe. Could you imagine somebody ever saying that to anybody? People would just be like, wow, you're an embarrassing idiot. You just accidentally like moved. How much money do you have where you're able to just burn through your expenses like that? It's so annoying when like fucking people who grew up rich like sit here and try to like educate everybody else on the way the world actually works. It's just childish as fuck.
Was playing semi-pro, or I was playing. No, sorry. So when I got out of college, I was selling copiers, and I decided that I wanted to play volleyball overseas. I was going to try to get a pro contract, and I was recruited to play volleyball here. So it was a year program to get my master's. And at the end of the year, you hypothetically get a pro contract, which I did.
Well, why is she going to school? Women shouldn't be able to go to school. They don't need that. They don't need to educate themselves. For what decision? Men should make all the decisions. Why are you even trying to be successful? And isn't there an irony that she's saying that women shouldn't try to be successful and that they should just listen to everything that a man says and then like sit here and be like a fucking independent woman? It's fucking incredible.
The YouTube stuff, so I kind of I started the show when I got here, and I didn't expect it to like get huge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So then I kind of just got like stuck here because I was like, I'd have to move my producer, and it was just, I mean, you know how it is if you guys wanted to move this whole operation, what a headache it would be.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, like imagine. So I'd have to, I'm like, the voltage converters. So I kind of accidentally ended up here, but I am going to leave eventually.
Are you?
Yeah.
I can see why. I don't think your opinions are that widely shared in this country.
No, they love me here.
Listen, there's something else. I think it's been we call the show Trigonometry.
Yeah.
But even by our standards, this has been pretty triggering for a lot of people. However, there's something even more triggering that I do have to ask you about, because in between the time that we booked you to come on the show and you actually coming on the show,
here we go.
You had a guy called Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah. And then you did an interview with this guy. Like, this is not a guy we would ever have on because he's a racist, Holocaust denying piece of shit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And additionally, like, he's not interested in having a real conversation. It's completely unproductive to talk to him. There's no point to. He's going to sit there and he's going to downplay his racism, despite the fact that he thinks that race mixing, he thinks that white people sleeping with black people is the same as, or similar, sorry, not the exact same, just similar to sleeping with a dog. He doesn't believe in race mixing. He's a racist piece of shit. He's a fucking loser. He thinks that black people are, and when Hispanic people are biologically inferior. That's really what it comes down to. There's no reason to ever engage with him. And Pearl did, and it seems like Pearl shares opinions with him. And so...
concerned. But you had him on, and then you took that interview down and apologized. So what happened with the whole thing?
Oh, I can't talk too much. There's like legal things going on.
Legal things?
Wow.
Yeah, there's not with Nick, but just but
why would there be legal things going on?
I have a video coming out about that whole thing. So you guys have to wait for the video.
What legal things could she possibly have going on? What? What the fuck does that mean?
Well, but I will say I did not find Nick to be racist. My staff actually did not find him to be racist.
Wait, he was talking to an Italian girl next to you and saying that she shouldn't have a black boyfriend or something along those lines.
He doesn't believe in. See, I don't really want to go into like the race mixing.
You can't not believe in race mixing without being racist. If you don't believe in race mixing, you're racist. Now, if you have a preference, that's perfectly fine. If you said, yeah, I don't really find black women attractive, or I don't find white women attractive, or Hispanic women, blah, 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 that's totally fine. Live your truth, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between having a personal opinion or perspective versus trying to basically legislate that away or shaming people for having that. Okay? Like, that's what's happening here. He's racist. He thinks that sleeping with black people is the same as fucking a dog. Similar. Sorry. People would correct me and say that when I said that he thinks that it's exactly the same. People are like, no, he's not racist, Papa God. He actually just thinks it's degenerate, but not as degenerate. It's like, wow, incredible. You're right. That's so unracist of him. He's racist. It's not that complicated. But, you know, for the girl that thinks that slavery wasn't that bad, I guess you don't really know, huh?
It's not too much.
No, but you just said he wasn't being racist, and I watched him be racist on your show.
Well, I mean, to me, he says the same things that, like there's a lot of people that think like that. When
it doesn't make it less racist just because other people think it.
You could say that, but to me, it's like...
Yeah, that's true.
His argument is more about culture. It's easier if you date someone in your culture.
Black people could be in my culture. American culture is about the melting pot and, like, mixing. It's about, like, we're the best country in the world. We also happen to be, like, the most diverse country in the world. We take in, like, the most immigrants. So...
You'd have to watch the full thing, but was, like, being a bit, like, combative to him. And to me, he was just, like...
Yes. Oh, my God. What a bitch for being combative to a racist. Holy fuck.
Kidding. But, yeah.
What, you said...
You did say...
You just said that he actually believes in race mixing. Now he's just kidding? What?
A bit racist, even in that. And in fact, in your apology, you said that he said racist things.
Well, there's a video coming out about all of that, but you'll see. It's coming out.
So she's
well, the reason why I'm asking you is because it's kind of like a big deal.
So one of these two things. Either she... so this is one of two things. Either... One, she gave a okay, basically what it sounds like is she just gave an apology to get people to stop criticizing her. Is that what she's saying? She just made an apology so people would stop criticizing her? Because that's what it sounds like. So she's a liar? I don't understand. How do you defend her at this point?
That you had this guy on. Do you see what I'm saying? He is incredibly toxic.
I'm just telling you my personal experience with him. We filmed hours and hours and hours of footage with him. There was that one to me, if you watch the full clip, it puts it in a little bit of context.
Well, you're an idiot, so you can't really trust
he was really polite. He showed up on time. Like,
wow.
He also...
Guys, hot take. Some racists can be polite, especially to white people. And especially when they centralize their entire platform around pretending to be a nice racist so that more people will engage with their content so that they can make more money, which is like 100% Nick's logic.
And honestly, he did a panel and he spoke about his opinions on race mixing, and a lot of people agreed with him.
Wow, a lot of racists.
But that doesn't change whether it's racist or not, right? But what I'm getting
Do you think it's racist to, like, because I'm curious, do you think it's racist, like, if I'm Irish and I say I want to date someone that's Irish?
No, of course not. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between saying I'm Irish, I want to date someone Irish, versus saying everybody should only stay within their own race, and that it's degenerate if they don't. Like, you don't have to, like, you're trying to force personal preference. There's nothing wrong with, like, just wanting to date an Irish person. Like, who cares? That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as saying that it's degenerate if you do otherwise.
Do you think that's racist?
No, but if I say to you, you're Irish, therefore you shouldn't date a black man, that is racist,
Yeah.
If you're Irish because when he spoke about it on the show, it was more about culture than race.
Wow.
But to me, that doesn't really work as an argument, Paul. So I'll give you an example. I'm half Latin American. I take after my dad's Irish side. If I date a Jamaican woman, Jamaica and Venezuela have a very similar culture. Yeah, we're culturally very similar. We have the same food, the same religion, whatever else. So to me, that argument doesn't work. Do you see what I'm saying?
Wait, Venezuela and what?
Jamaica. So Venezuela's at the top of South America, and Jamaica is, or Trinidad, which is literally, you see it over the water.
Yeah, well, it's just, when he was talking about how he wanted to date an Italian woman. Like, versus, like, he even said he wouldn't want to date a British girl, he'd want to date an Italian woman. So it was like, how is he a white supremacist?
Well, it's probably because he said, again, that dating, race mixing with a black person is, like, you know, is a degenerate act. It's almost like she's a fucking idiot. Holy fuck.
To date who he wants, but him telling your Italian friend she shouldn't be dating a black man, that's the racist part, don't you think?
Yeah.
I have to remember what he said in the clip.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking you, because you do have controversial guests, as we do, and there's nothing wrong with talking to people who are controversial, but Nick Fuentes is a very different kettle of fish, as we say here, right?
Yeah. My opinion is that he was polite overall. He was a good guy.
He was also denying the Holocaust, from what I remember.
Look, I'm not with that. Keep me out of that one. I'm not with the race. Like, that's not my thing. But I just think people are allowed to have their opinions. So if he has crazy opinions, let him have his opinions. And I think he should be allowed to talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah, I also think that, like, if you agree with those opinions, then you wouldn't give pushback. So I don't know her pushback against the anti-Semitic shit, but it sounds like you agree with some of his opinions, like on slavery and how you think it's overhyped or whatever.
But isn't it also the duty, Pearl, of the person interviewing them to push back on those opinions when they come up and actually challenge them and investigate them and to basically push back on it?
Yeah, I mean, we could do another show where we push back more. It's not the end all be all.
But surely,
but you don't. But you don't think he's racist, so there's nothing that you feel you need to push back on, which is why you're racist, right? Yeah, Pearl does date black men, so by that logic, Nick's logic, she's a degenerate in some capacity.
Isn't that?
I wanted to do like one with Dr. Umar, but he didn't want to come. Sad.
Who's Dr. I don't know who that is.
Dr. Umar has like the same opinions as Nick. Like, he doesn't believe in race mixing too.
Dr. Umar is kind of like a racist black guy, but to be fair, Nick thinks that white people are just better. Dr. Umar just believes in black strength because of, like, well, he's racist. I mean, let's be fucking. We don't have to like over rationalize this because Dr. Umar is fucking racist. But it's more like the intentionality is more about like kind of just getting away from oppression. But either way, he's fucking racist. It really doesn't matter. And that's why he won't go on there, probably because he thinks that Pearl is like fucking shit.
So he's just black.
Yeah.
It's like a common.
Yeah, there are some people who believe that, sure.
Yeah.
But you know, when you were talking about the Holocaust with him, he was saying it's like slavery, it got embellished, and you were sort of going, I can see your point. And that's what I found a bit confusing, because then in your apology you said, well, I wasn't really educated on these things.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're kind of taking that back
again,
now.
There's a statement coming out on everything, so you guys just have to wait for it.
Yeah.
Statement.
From our perspective, we're kind of saying to you what we thought you might have said to him, which is if a guest says or does something controversial, you kind of want to ask and find out why they've done that. And we have to make, by the way, if this is coming across as confrontational, that's not the intention at all, because whenever I see a guest not be challenged enough on someone's show, I often think there, by the grace of God go I, because we've had people on the show who've said controversial things and I've sort of missed the moment. And I kind of didn't challenge them enough, and I felt bad about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're giving her an opportunity to be like, yeah, I wish I pushed back more when I didn't, but she's not doing that.
I don't know if you remember, because you're not a political person, you might not. There was a guy called Darren Grimes who had a guy called Dr. David Starkey on, and he said something about how, of course, slavery wasn't genocide, otherwise there wouldn't be so many damn blacks.
Jesus Christ.
West, right? And that got picked up.
You shouldn't have said that, because now Pearl's going to be like, wow, that's a really good point. I guarantee you, bro.
By all the media, and they all had to go at him. And I just saw a fairly young, inexperienced interviewer in Darren failed to challenge someone who he looked up to and respected on what was just a bad phrasing more than anything, right? So I totally understand why you may have missed something or not have jumped in on something that you maybe felt that you should have jumped in on. But the reason that Francis and I would never have Nick Fuentes on is precisely because he says all that shit all the time. So if you were to actually challenge him on some of his abhorrent views, you'd spend the entire 3 hours doing that.
Did you watch the full video?
I watched some of it, not the full video. Yeah.
Okay. I did challenge him at points of it.
You didn't, but okay.
Tell us about
Yeah,
that.
tell us.
I mean, we had a whole panel on race mixing.
Yeah.
And like we had like,
You just said that you saw his perspective. So like, how are you going to, you just said that to us. Okay.
that was why he came out. Like, the political stuff was just because he was there. Like, so I did a one-on-one as like the reason I brought him on was I saw him on No Jumper, like talking about race mixing. And
you were like, oh, I can get views for this. That's what she saw.
heard that point of view, but it's usually like not, people look different that have that point of view usually. So
what the fuck does that
mean?
I've
I've heard it, but I've just never heard it like that, I guess. So we just brought him on a panel just like about race mixing, and they did a whole panel on it.
But then he was denying the Holocaust.
You know, that was crazy.
Wow, that's crazy.
But that's what he does. That's why I'm asking you.
Well,
like,
It's interesting that she's more comfortable shitting on black people than Jewish people. How do you think that's another form of racism? What do you think?
But we brought him on to talk about race mixing. That's what we brought him on
did.
because it's a relationship show, and we just interviewed him because he was there.
But there will be people, Pearl, who will say, well, if you're going to bring that person on, and look, again, this isn't to, misrepresent or do any of those types of things. So the reason we have this show is so we can talk and have honest conversations, because part of this is for me to clarify my thinking about different issues. That's why we do the show. But part of it is also when you bring someone on, you can't also ignore that element of it. Do you see what I mean?
I just don't know what you mean by ignore.
No, because if you're not addressing the fact that he's a Holocaust denier, then you're ignoring that. Do you see what I mean?
I mean, I don't agree that the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, no,
that's reassuring.
Yeah, I mean, I was just listening to him. Yeah. And I think you're allowed to listen to people that you might not agree with. And I think as women, we're more...
Yeah, but you should push back where you disagree. And it's clear you don't disagree with him very much.
...more agreeable than men. So a lot of times you might take it as me agreeing, but... No, I didn't.
Well, you did say, so it's kind of like slavery, it's been embellished.
I was talking about how people use atrocities to control people. And I was quoting Thomas Sowell, who's a black author. Who said I'm
a big fan of Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, so I was quoting Thomas Sowell.
I actually like Thomas Sowell, too. I listen to some of the things that he says. He's an intelligent guy. I've never heard him say anything that was like anti-black or racist. He has very nuanced conversations, in my opinion, and talks about things in a way where it's like not dismissing black people. It's just trying to have a greater conversation. And yet when Pearl talks about it, it seems like he's weaponizing Thomas Sowell's work and his perspective and opinion to be racist. But that intentionality is not there with Thomas Sowell. And you might be like, well, it's because he's black. Well, yeah, there's a lot of black people who are racist against black people. And same thing with white people. There's plenty of people who are like engaged in self-hatred. So,
and speaking about his ideas, if people watch the full interview.
Yeah.
And I said that in the interview.
Yeah.
And I was talking about how people use an atrocity to control people.
Yeah.
Sure, that happens, but that doesn't mean that you get to downplay slavery.
But you don't think that's what happened with the Holocaust?
It sounded like it based on what he was saying, but
he's a well-known Holocaust denier. Of course,
that's where I was feeling.
Sorry.
Let me finish. At the time, that's what I was talking about. It sounded like some of Thomas Sowell's ideas, but do I think that the Holocaust didn't happen? No.
Okay, so basically what she's saying there is that she double agrees with Nick Fuentes and that she thinks it was overhyped. Because the way that she phrased it is she brought it back to, I don't think it never happened. But she won't say like, oh, I think that people overhype it to push like a victim complex. So she thinks that it was overhyped. That's what she thinks. Just so you know, like Pearl thinks that slavery and the Holocaust were overhyped.
That's crazy. Go ahead.
So I guess...
Like your only like non-anti-Semitic or non-racist argument could be, I think that when it comes to movies, they overhype, they sensationalize some of these things that happen. Like let's say with slavery, and it's usually so that they can take a white character like Matthew Broderick and go like, look, he's one of the good whites. Look at how bad these slave owners are. He actually is a good guy, right? There might be a level of truth to that, but like. For media, for like the sensationalization of a movie, maybe, but like as a country, we allowed people to own people and beat them to death. The Bible says you can beat your slaves as long as they don't die in like 2 days. Like, what benefit does the conversation about overhyping this type of thing even have? Like, there's none. It's just like a stupid point. You could say like, hey, listen, I think that some people are engaging in a victim complex too much of a degree. In general, people do this. Nowadays, we have like, there are victim complexes. People will, an identity, not just like being black or anything, but any identity. People do, like black people do it, people with ADHD do it, they'll pretend to have it. Any group of white people will do it, fucking conservatives will do it, Democrats will do it. Everybody might victimize themselves in some capacity. That's a fundamental problem about how socially acceptable it is to victimize yourself. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a form of oppression associated with different identities. There's just a better way to engage with it, to understand like, hey, this is a historical problem. We as a society should move forward to try to correct it. But also, you're an individual that has to advocate for yourself. What the fuck do I have bunny ears on? What the fuck? Okay.
What do you think your responsibility is when you bring on controversial guests onto
Nothing.
the show? Do you have any
money.
Responsibility? What do you believe?
For the guests?
Oh, no, not for the guests. For the content that you put out, Pearl.
Yeah, I'm responsible for all the content I put out.
Okay.
You're responsible for all the content that you put out. And do you now look at that and think you shouldn't have done that? You made a mistake, you made an error?
I don't regret having someone controversial on. If I had to do it again, I would have maybe had someone on the opposite end of the argument that could push back.
Maybe she would have.
But how I probably would have did it if I had to do it again, one full interview with both of them. Let them talk, let them say what they're going to say, and then bring them together.
So who would you have on the other end? So you'd have
Dr. Umar!
That's not somebody that's on the other end. You just said that they're both similar. The person that you have on the other end is probably Destiny. It's probably your best person that you could do. Because he's like, he's very educated on on Nick Fuentes. That's who you would put on the other end. Dr. Umar isn't on the other end. They seem to be similar in their viewpoints. They just one is white and one is black.
But that's not. But those are two people who share the same viewpoint. Just one happens to be white, one happens to be black.
Yeah.
That's not. That's playing. Do you see that's kind of identity
well,
politics?
yeah, but then we did a whole panel with people that disagreed with him. So we did do that.
All right. Yeah. Well, what I'm a bit confused about is you did a whole apology. But it sounds like you're
stop asking me about this. Like I said,
it kind of matters.
I have it.
Hey guys, I don't look. See, this is why Pearl says women don't take accountability. It's because she's a woman that doesn't take accountability. So
statement coming out about it. So
okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it to your statement. Listen, we always wrap up the show with the same question we ask all our guests, which is, what's the one thing you think we're not talking about that we really should be?
Men's issues. Yeah, that's my
Do you want to elaborate, or have to leave it there?
No, I would just say like men. I just think men not getting custody of their kids. I think that is an issue that nobody talks about.
Okay, sweet. Well, Pearl, thank you very much. Where can people find you online?
Just Pearly Things. So you can look up Just Pearly Things on YouTube.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you very soon with another brilliant interview like this one. Probably won't be quite like this one, or a raw show. Take care and see you soon.
And for those of you who like your trigonometry on the go, it's always available as a podcast. Take care and see you soon, guys.
Okay. Cool.
What is